Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Fell in Love with Yoruichi Shihōin Bleach Part 2. Before we start, please go support marioiale for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Naruto is a male. Chapter 12. Naruto stayed on his knees as grunts came from his mouth, but he didn't move. Hiyori said, "Something to distract the force that has been fighting until now." Yamamoto nods and says, "Don't attack him, but be prepared to fight if you need Byakuya." Inside Naruto, as the walls faded away, the girls saw what looked like some sort of dump room, and there was the Kyuubi standing there, and Naruto was in front of him, and they looked around and saw the new hollow as they had described. The hollow said, Well, what do we have here, visitors? Come play with my little pet." Pointing towards Kyuubi, Kushina asked, "Who are you and how is Kyuubi here?" The hollow said, "Who I am you don't know. But I must say I'm surprised to see you here, Saifan. I mean, it's been over 400 years since I last saw you. Funny, you had the same face you have now when you learned that Aizen was still alive and tried to get there to stop him from escaping," Saifan asked. "Who are you?" As he looked at the hollow said, "I'm sorry, but the times are not right. Know this, the mask you see on me now is as fake as the one I had back then. Now you ask me how the Kyuubi is here. Simple. When I met the boy, I was able to recognize the traces of the Kyuubi's soul and power that had fused with the boy's. I then reformed him, but he had no brain, so I copied a part of my soul here to control his soul, giving me another toy to play with like my other toys before him." I asked. "Naruto, are you okay?" the hollow said. "He can't hear you. His mind is almost gone, and all that's left is him still fighting the Kyuubi here. Nothing you can say or do will bring him back. He's under my control now," another voice said. "Not quite." As Kage appeared again surrounded by light, the hollow said, "So you came back. I thought I was rid of you." Kage walked towards Naruto and said, "Boy, this is what you've become. Are you ready to let this creature consume you?" Naruto didn't move or even acknowledge that anyone was there. Kage placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "Boy, why are you still standing? Why have you fought so long and hard in the darkness? What reason do you have to continue living? Are you ready to die alone?" Something inside Naruto's spirit snapped, and he said in a calm voice, "I was born alone, I live alone, and I will die alone." As he still didn't take his eyes off the Kyuubi in front of him, each of the women shuddered at this, and Saifan said, "But you're not alone anymore, Naruto. We're here for you," the hollow said. "Until when, Naruto? Until they betray you like your mother did back there, like your father did, like everyone who ever got close to you. Remember." As he waved his hand and showed Sandaime lying to Naruto, then showed Tuchi and Dustin lying, showed Irika pestering Naruto, Kushina had tears in her eyes and anger in her heart. As each new memory appeared, the woman tried to destroy them while Kyuubi, Kage, and Naruto all watched. Kage said, "So kid, this guy shows you pain and tries to turn you into darkness, but you still hold on. Why? Where do you find your strength to keep going? Why do you fight so hard, Naruto?" He demands. "Why fight with every ounce of your being? Why do you fight your own demons? Where do you get the strength to keep going?" As he placed his hand on Naruto's head, Naruto's eyes flicked across, and the world around them changed from a messy room to darkness. Then, in fast forward, the world blurred, showing the girls fighting with Naruto's memories, and Naruto had a small smile on his face. The hollow leaped onto Kyuubi's head and merged with Kyuubi. Kyuubi then pounced on Naruto, who looked at Kyuubi and said, "I have been in darkness for so long that I thought I had become darkness. At that time I did not know what light was. Turn the darkness away from me. In time, I will cling to the light to show me the way for as long as I can. Please, Kage, give me your strength." Kage changed back into a Zanpakuto, and Naruto pulled it out of its sheath and said, "Glow bright Arachner Kage." As the entire area was covered in light for a moment, when the girls could see Naruto standing there holding his Zanpakuto against Kyuubi's paw. Kyuubi lunged at Naruto with its tails, and Naruto cut off the tips of each one that attacked him. Kyuubi screamed and backed away and tried to slash Naruto with its claws, but Naruto sliced them off. Then Kyuubi howled in rage and crouched down to the ground like a cat ready to pounce, and Naruto held his Zanpakuto over his head angled down to the ground in front of him. Kyuubi dashed forward and went to attack Naruto with its tails again, and as Naruto went to block them, Kyuubi moved its body where its head was behind Naruto, and before Naruto could react, Kyuubi opened its mouth and bit down, consuming Naruto. All the girls screamed, "Naruto!" in shock. Kyuubi roared and looked at the girls and said, "The boy is mine now." Kyuubi blinked and coughed for a moment as its eyes glowed white. At that moment, a white blade shot out from either side of Kyuubi's body before it spun around, and Kyuubi split in two just behind its front legs. As the two parts fell to the ground, a figure was seen standing among the wreckage. Kyuubi snorted and coughed and said, "I'll have my revenge, boy. As long as this power remains in you, I can control you." Kage appeared again, but Naruto was still holding his Zanpakuto, and Kage said, "Then maybe this power should disappear." As he moved, and then pieces of Kyuubi's body started to get absorbed into him as the hollow pieces spread out, covering him completely, while two tails formed on his back, and Naruto asked, "What's going on here?" Kage smiled and said, "Now that he's gone, I decided it was time for your light to go out, kid. You were fun to watch for a while, but I thrive in the darkness and I have no use for you." As he held out his hand, and a copy of his Zanpakuto appeared and said, "It's really tight in it, let's have some fun." And in a flash of light they were all consumed in it. Outside of Naruto, everyone was waiting to see what was going to happen to Naruto, since he hadn't moved since he stopped earlier. At that moment a blinding light came on, and several moans were heard, and when the light went out, the girls were outside and Naruto was having convulsions, and Yamamoto asked, "What's going on?" The clay in Naruto's body began to act again, but this time it flowed away from his body and formed a second body. When the body finished changing, it was an exact copy of Naruto with two tails moving behind it. He said, "So kid, tell me, how does it feel to see yourself in a mirror?" Naruto, who was still covered in clay, also had two tails and said, "What's going on here, Kage?" Kage said, "Simple boy, I am darkness. Darkness cannot exist within light. You are light, and now I am darkness that will consume your light and spread the darkness." As he stood up, and in his hand he had a sheathed Zanpakuto, Naruto slowly stood up and had his Zanpakuto in his hand, also in its sheath, and Naruto looked at Byakuya and said, "Get out of here, this is my fight." While looking back at Kage, Kage smiled and said, "Please boy, this is not a fight, this is a killing. You have always been weak and you have had to rely on my strength," Yamamoto said. "Byakuya, come out of there, this isn't something you can handle." While looking at Naruto and Kage, Kage said, "You old fool, you don't stand a chance in this fight, no one does." As he reached for his Zanpakuto and opened it, Naruto did too, and when they both activated, Naruto was white while Kage was black. Naruto frowned and said, "What's really going on here, Kage? Why are you doing this?" Kage said, "You don't remember, do you? That fallen angel actually played a prank on you and the others, to change everyone's memories of his so-called little test. Even his partner in crime didn't remember. Tell me, Naruto, don't you remember the first time you met Yamamoto?" Naruto said. "As rude as I was, he welcomed me here and said he was glad to see I came out safely from my trials there in Konoha," Kage said. "Wrong, that was the fake memory they gave you and the others. When you first met him, he told you he had a mission for you, one that was separate from the girls who came with you. The mission was for you to train, and when you returned to the elemental countries you were to wipe out all of the hidden villages." Everyone was shocked, and Naruto said, "Lies, you're lying." "I would remember that," Kage said. "Oh please, you say you remember but you don't remember. You don't remember because it was all a test for you. To see if you had the strength and courage to do what they wanted you to do. To fight Yamamoto. It was a test for you to become strong enough that your own mind would be thrown into confusion. After all, in your own words, you could never kill the patient to stop the disease. It is very close to your own life. People say you are Kyuubi and that your life should be spared for it. Yamamoto told you that because of the use of chakra and the way the humans in the elemental countries were treating the kami creatures there, kami was going to destroy them. To prevent this, you were to cause the loss of all knowledge of people's use of chakra by killing them." Yamamoto frowned and said, "You're wrong." But thought, it could be true, it could be real. No, he's just trying to break Naruto. Naruto put his hand to his head and said, "You're wrong, you're trying to twist my mind," Kage said. If I am, then I'm the next person in a long line of people who have done it before. The Sandaime, Mizuki, Iruka, Dustin, Tucci, your parents, Yoruichi, Kasuke, Saifan, I am, Tenten. All of your precious people have done that. Naruto was shaking his head and said, No, you're lying, they never did that, not them. As he started to fight in a sword fight with only his shuriken as Kage said as he defended himself with ease. Really, the Sandaime, when he told you he never knew why you were hated and tricked you into being loyal to him. Mizuki by being kind by using you to get what he wanted. Iruka by saying he respects you and sees you as himself. Yet he didn't even care until you saved his life. Dustin was kind to you and treats you kindly, but only because he owed it to your parents. If it weren't for them, he would have kicked you out. Just like Tucci. He would have let you starve if it weren't for your godfather paying him, and he owed it to your parents. As for Yoruichi, she came to you and then left you in your pain. How much she hurt you after she finally showed up and left you. Kasuke too, he knew what you went through and didn't even bother to come check on you. Your parents were boorish. They chose ungrateful people over their own flesh and blood. They didn't even love you like everyone told you when you were small. The one with the 3 rude she-devils, they used your emotions to twist your mind. Tenten acts like she cares, but the truth is she just wants to help you after she found out you saved her life. She doesn't like owing anyone anything. Then there's I am. She knows that without you her father and her will be living on the streets, so she seduces you into continuing to live high while you suffer, and last but not least Saifan. She's the worst of them all. Naruto was furious, and couldn't hear anyone shouting denial as he continued to fight. Saifan was being held by 3 different binding spells as well as Kenpachi and was still trying to break free to hurt Kage. Tenten was being held by her mother as she cried and screamed in denial, and Ayam was being held by her grandmother and mother who glared at Kage. Kasuke, Yoruichi, Kushina and Minato were controlling their anger, but the sparks of energy coming out of them were enough to scare everyone. Kage said, You know why Saifan is the worst. She gets close to you and accepts your secrets. She treats you like she loves you, but you're just a replacement for her. You know that, you're a replacement for your own grandmother to her. She wanted you to become strong, and you got close to her so that when you two fought each other she could hurt you the way she was hurt. You're nothing more than a way for her to get revenge. Why else would she give you hope and tell you that the only way she would respond is if you actually hit her? Saifan shouted. That's a lie, bastard! Attracting everyone's attention, including Naruto and Kage's, Saifan said. I care for him, I damn love him. The reason I wanted him to fight me to learn the truth is that I wanted him to take my place as captain. I wanted to be his second so I could always be by his side. You were never a replacement for Naruto. My feelings for you are genuine. Just like with Ayam and Tenten, they both care about you because they were willing to die to save you, not because they had to get out of some sick twisted reality like he told you, but because they wanted to. You're all like Naruto. You're important to me, you're my precious person, Naruto. As she had tears coming out of her eyes, Naruto saw the tears falling and looked at the others there and saw the tears and thought, Their tears are for me. They really care about me. Naruto closed his eyes and said, I've been in your shadow for a long time, Kage. It's time I burn bright. As his power surged and he shouted, Bankai. When Naruto appeared in his Bankai again, Kage said, Alright kid, I'll extinguish your light once and for all. It's time I show you my true power. As he detached the handle of his shuriken and held the 2 pieces to the side of his body and said, Bankai, while being covered in darkness. When the darkness faded, there stood Kage with 2 Zanpakutos with swords coming out of each end, shocking everyone. Naruto asked. How? Kage said. Do you really think I would show you all my moves like that, boy? I have the ability to turn into more than one sword. That is why I don't have one real sword. The number is only limited by the amount of energy I have. Thanks to your memories and the darkness I consumed there, as well as taking what was left of Kyuubi within your soul into me, I have become something beyond your understanding. I have become darkness itself and now consume light. Now watch how to truly fight. As the 2 tails spun around him and grabbed the lower half of both staff weapons, which separated again, and brought them back as energy blades shot out, forming 4 double-bladed weapons. Kage then got into a strange stance and said, Come on kid, show me how weak you truly are. Naruto saw all this happening and then looked at the ground and noticed that Kage's shadow was being consumed by his Zanpakuto. But Kage's Zanpakuto was absorbing the light around Naruto. Naruto thought for a moment and said, I see, I know who you are now, Kage. I know why you're doing this, Kage asked. What nonsense are you talking now? Naruto said. Look at us, we were two sides of the same coin. Your absorption power from me and I from you. Eventually we will even out and neutralize each other. That's why you've been making me angry, you know you have to hurry. If we even out, neither of us can win. That's why you also made so many Zanpakutos so you can try to take my power away before we even out, but since we're the same coin I can do the same thing you can. As he split his Zanpakuto into two halves and then halves again forming four leaves, Kage got angry and charged at Naruto. Spin. A deadly dance was taking place that shocked everyone. White energy blades colliding with black energy blades. As people watched, Yamamoto said, Quadra Bushido. Attracting everyone's attention, Ichigo asked. What was that? Yamamoto said. The style they're using is ancient. I only witnessed this style once, by a pair of brothers whose bodies were born together at both hips. They fought with perfect balance. They never cut each other and moved with such grace that you'd believe every sword there had to be a fake because the fact that they never touched showed how skilled they truly were, Ichigo asked. So they were never defeated in battle, Yamamoto said. No, they were. In their last battle, the two brothers were trapped at the gate of a village where someone had arranged to separate them. They set up a trap that cut both brothers in half, breaking their connection at the hip. They were then attacked and surrounded and killed. Neither had learned to watch their own back. That is the weakness of this style. You need 4 arms, or in this case tails, and to defeat it you have to cut off the tails, Ichigo shouted. Did you hear that, Naruto? Cut off your tail, Kage growled upon hearing the scream, and Naruto said. So, this is how to defeat you, Kage said. And you too. Naruto frowned and defended himself, but now he knew what to look for. Kage brought the 4 leaves forward in a spinning motion, and Naruto slowly started to back away and thought, we may be the same, but I don't know this style very well. Kage saw Naruto back against the wall, and as Naruto tried to fight back, Kage pinned both of his arms above his head with 2 of his Zanpakutos while his tails held the other 2 above his neck. Naruto tried to swing his tails around him but found they were blocked by the wall, and Kage said, Last words before dying. Naruto said, yeah, bye, as he used his tails to kick his own legs out from under him as he released his 2 swords that were locked against the 2 in Kage's arms. As Naruto fell, he made his legs split and grabbed both handles of his deactivated tail blades and activated them directly underneath Kage. The blade shot upwards and pierced through Kage's legs, arms, and tails, causing his torso to fall to the ground. Kage said, Very good, boy, but remember, you cannot kill me because I am your shadow and I will always be with you, waiting. As his body turned into shadows and then absorbed into Naruto. As the last shadow was absorbed, Naruto closed his eyes and the clay around his body began to crack before he fell. Orihime dropped the shield and everyone slowly walked towards Naruto, and Hiyori said, Well, looks like he passed his test. Ichigo sighed and said, Now we'll have to teach him how to use it, Yamamoto said. There's never a dull moment with you, Naruto, is there? As he looked at the boy, Byakuya asked. What should we do now, sir? Yamamoto said. For now nothing, the danger has passed, but I want him to spend time with his family, and I want you captains here to also spend time with him as a person. He was betrayed by those fools in Konoha, and he is waiting for us to betray him too. I want to make sure that the darkness will never be able to take that much control away from him again. Now I need to go home to my wife. Nothing that happened here today will be spoken of to anyone who wasn't here. I may not be Captain Commander anymore, but until the boy is able to fully take control I will still have some power, Sayafon said. Sir, wait. Drawing everyone's attention, Yamamoto asked. What is Sayafon? Sayafon said. Sir, this is about the new Hollow Lord. He had copied a part of his soul into Naruto because he was able to control the traces of the Kyuubi's soul that had fused with Naruto. The thing is, sir, he knew me. He talked about how it had been over 400 years since we last saw each other. He said the mask I had now was just as fake as the face I had back then. He said he wanted to make Naruto into his newest toy like the others he already has. He also mentioned seeing the look on my face when I saw Aizen was alive and I tried to get there to help stop him. Yamamoto frowned and said, This is disturbing, captains. I want you to prepare for combat. I have a feeling this is just the beginning. I think this new hollow is going to start showing itself more, and we need to take care of it. Each nodded and Yamamoto sighed and said, All injured people be treated, and I want everyone to tell me if you see anything that could be considered strange about Naruto from now on. I hope this problem will be solved, but we won't be sure until we have more information. The fact that he was so successful against a mental attack like this worries me that another one could happen. As he began to leave, each of the captains also began to leave, and Kenpachi said, But I never got to fight, Ichigo said. Relax, Kenpachi. Once I'm sure Naruto has learned to control his wizard powers, I'll have him fight you. Kenpachi nods and looks at Naruto where Saifan, Iam, Tenten, Kushina, Orihime and Yoruichi were trying to heal his wounds or looking on with concern. He shook his head and thought, Woman, they can't just call their wounds badges of honor. As he left, Kushina said, I think we should take him home, Minato said. I agree, I think it's time we really become a family to him, Ichigo said. I couldn't have said it better myself. Tenten, Iam, and Saifan looked a little worried, and Kushina said, Relax, the three of you are considered family, so you invited them along with your family. The girls smiled and Yoruichi said, So, Saifan, you realize you just ruined any tough reputation you had with the other captains. Was it worth it? Saifan smiled and said, Yes. Orihime, who was healing Naruto, blinked, turned her head to the side and said, Everyone. Does Naruto have tails? As she looked between her legs like two tails of blonde hair, Kushina blinked and Kisuke said, They're not just tails, look. As he moved Naruto's hair aside and showed that his ears were now fox ears. 3.5 seconds later, as everyone's brains kicked in various screams that were heard throughout Soul Society, Kawi was heard. Chapter 13. Naruto groaned as he slowly opened his eyes and found himself in a white room. Naruto looked over and saw Kage sitting there and asked, What the heck? Kage said. Relax, kid, looks like you were right. It seems it was only a matter of time before we neutralized each other. I'd become the yang to your yin. I have a little bit of light in my darkness, and you have a little bit of darkness in your light, Naruto said. I don't understand, Kage, Kage said. It's ironic that you started calling me just Kage instead of my full name because now that I've absorbed the remnants of the Kyuubi's power I've become someone different. As he looked to the side as if lost in his memories, Naruto asked, What do you mean we're going to have to fight again? Kage chuckled and said, No boy, that is no longer possible. It is. After all, if I die you die and if you die I die. We are balanced. I am a collection of the darkness within you like the light side of a yin-yang. However, if you reverse it where I am the dark side of the yin-yang, there is light within me. He is who I should be, who I will be in the moment. In those moments I am a shadow of you. A copy. You have my original power and my old name, but the light within me has another name that you also know, but you do not understand how to use my power or its. In time you will. But for now you must return to your precious people. But know this, we no longer have our own power, we are one, I have half of your power and you have half of mine. We can no longer draw power from each other. I will draw my power from you and you will draw your power from the shadows around you. My powers have slight changes and you must relearn them. Some of it will make you more powerful, but other times it will make you weaker. You must learn it. Now go and think about what I have said. Naruto blinked and found himself staring at a ceiling and looked over and noticed he was on a bed, and went to sit up and found he couldn't and looked down, and noticed he was tied to a bed and said, What the hell is going on here? As he tried to free himself, his voice alerted others that he was awake and the door opened and Kushina and Orihime walked in and Kushina said, You're awake, thank goodness, Naruto said. What's wrong, Mom, and why am I tied up? Orihime said. Relax, Naruto. We tied you up so you wouldn't move before you healed. Your recent adventure broke 4 ribs and hurt you badly. Once we make sure you're healed enough, we'll release you. Naruto frowned and said, Well, who are you? Looking at Orihime, Orihime sighed and Kushina said, Naruto, this is Orihime, my mother. Naruto's eyes widened and said, Grandma. Orihime nods and Naruto smiled and said, Nice to finally meet you, Grandma. Orihime smiled and put her hand on either side of his head and said, I decline. two little things flew out of his head and Naruto screamed and said, "Oh my god!" "Pixies from hell," one of the goblins said. "We're not from hell." As a golden glow surrounded Naruto, and he suddenly felt his wounds heal even more. About 4 minutes later the glowing stopped, and the sprites flew back to Oriheim before disappearing, and she said, "There, that should do it." Kushina cut Naruto's bonds and slowly sat up and said, "I'm stiff," Kushina said. "No wonder, it's been 2 weeks." Naruto's eyes were wide open and he said, 2 weeks. Kushina nods her head and said, "You made a lot of people worry about you. Mom and I eventually had to sedate Saifan, Ten, and I am to get them to leave your bed." Naruto looked down for a moment, and said after several minutes, "That was all real, wasn't it? All of you crying over me?" Calmly, Kushina walked over and hugged him, and he stiffened for a moment, and she said, "Yes, son." Naruto cracked a genuine smile and wrapped his arms around Kushina, bursting into tears. He whispered, "Mom," over and over again as he finally felt the weight on his shoulder caused by his past lift. In Konoha, the third Hokage said, "That's quite a story you've told me, Jiraiya." "I find it very hard to believe," Jiraiya said. "It's not that hard to believe if you think about it, sir. Remember the legend Nidain told you when he was training us?" The third frowned and said, "But that was just Jiraiya, he was a legend. There's never been any proof of it." Kakashi, who was listening, said, "What a legend, sir," the third said. "The Nidain told me a legend that he and his brother discovered. It was a legend about a great city that was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times by the hand of Kami, or so the legend goes. They said that the legend told them that Kami would erase the memories of the world as well as all evidence of the once legendary city before rebuilding it. Both the Nidain and Shodain didn't really believe in the legend when they heard it until they came across an ancient book. The book was written as a tourist article. Something that told about restaurants, recreational spots, places to stay, historical sites, things to make travel easier. If it hadn't been for that book, they honestly would have never believed in the legend of the once great city. It was that book that gave them the dream of building Konoha. However, the book itself was destroyed a long time ago during their nomadic days, so the Nidain told me about the book and the city. He explained that when I was training, he wanted me to pass it on. Thus, the knowledge of the once great city was never truly lost," Kakashi said. "So you think it's possible that this big city was the one Naruto and the others were talking about, the Soul Society?" Jiraiya said. "No, or at least not directly. I don't understand everything, but I think at least part of that legend might be true. If it is, it's possible that what I heard is also true. I don't have enough information at the moment to confirm or deny it. I don't know what to believe," the third said. "Until we get more information, I don't want this information to get out. I want to see Naruto when I have the chance, but I don't want to put him in danger by coming back here by trying to force him to come back." At that moment a knock was heard at the door and the third said, "Come in." The door opened and Team 8 and 10 entered and the third saw that they had finished catching Tora since they had the mission scroll and said, "Ah, good work. I guess you're here for another mission," Kiba shouted. "No more D-ranks. One more time going after that cat and Akamaru and I will kill him." As he had blood dripping from his hand onto the floor, the Hokage saw and said, "I see. Do you feel your team is ready for a higher ranking mission, Kurenai?" Kurenai said. "A low C, yes sir," Ino said. "Wait, you mean if you scream like Kiba here you can get a higher mission?" The third frowned and said. "No, but I was thinking of a joint mission. Team 10 and Team 8, both of you are to watch over a client on his way back home and provide protection while he completes his bridge. Kakashi, would you mind getting the man from the waiting room for me?" Kakashi nods and walks over to the waiting room, opens it and says, "You may come in now, sir." A drunk man in a straw hat came in and said, "Oh ho ho, I get a lot of protection for my pay, a beautiful woman, 3 strong ninjas, and 6 weak-looking children." Everyone broke into a sweat as Kiba grunted and the third said, "Sorry Tazuna, but you see, only the 2 genin teams will be going with you. Jiraiya and Kakashi were finishing a report on a recent mission." Tazuna broke into a sweat and saw all the genin staring at him and said, "Well, I thought I'd get more for what I paid for." As he drank his love, Asuma sighed as he held his hand over Ino's mouth and said, "All right teams, we'll be leaving in 2 hours. That's enough time for your team, Kurenai said. Yes. What door? Asuma asked. Where is the Tazuna mission located? Tazuna said. Say hello? Asuma nodded and said. South. We'll travel towards Suna the first day and then take a short route I learned when I was with the Fire Keepers. It'll shave about 2 days off our trip. Sounds good, Kurenai nodded and said. Yeah, sounds good. You've heard it, Team 8, South Gate 2 hours, move out and prepare for a mission of at least a month. Use scrolls I showed you how to create. Each member nodded before leaving, and Ino looked at Asuma and asked what kind of scrolls. Asuma said, Don't worry, be prepared for a month away from the village. As the teams left, Jiraiya waited until the client left and said, You know this mission is going to be higher than a C rank, right? Kakashi and the third looked at him, and the third asked, What do you mean? Jiraiya said, My spy network said that the Wave Country is currently under the control of a businessman named Gojo, the shipping merchant. He has his hands in the entire black market. The third frowned and said, And a bridge connecting the wave to the mainland would be a risk to its control, Jiraiya said. I also received information from my spies that Naruto and the others were seen taking a boat from a dock near Wave. It might be an opportunity to try to gain information, the third frowned and said. Kakashi, I want you to find your student and guy and have both teams go with Asuma's team. Jiraiya, I want you to follow them and if they need help back them up, but also check with your spies in the area. There aren't many places a boat launched from that area could have gone without stopping for fuel. See if you can find a trail back. If we can't figure out where Naruto and the others are or where they're going, we can figure out where they've actually been. Jiraiya, that's your main mission. Kakashi, you are to work with the other teams, which gives Sasuke a chance to work with teams instead of some Lone Ranger bullshit. If after the mission is done and Jiraiya finds a solid lead, you can recommission all the teams to help you if you think they would work with 4 people whose family specializes in tracking. Both men nod and quickly leave. The third sighed and said, This is going to be a pain. As he looked at the paperwork, back in Soul Society, Naruto sighed as he lay down on his bed. His mother and grandmother had just left, but they ordered him to stay in bed for another day to ensure his full recovery. As she closed her eyes, a voice said, Your family really loves you, you know it. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around the room, and his eyes fell on the figure sitting in a chair in the corner with his arms behind his head. Naruto said, What are you doing here, Jericho? Jericho said, Well, actually, several things. The first is to explain why you now have ears and tails. Naruto twitched and put his hand on his head and felt his ears and then looked down and saw 2 tails wagging back and forth and said, How did I miss them? With a frown, Jericho said, You're still emotionally devastated by what happened and you haven't fully recovered yet. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Naruto nodded and said, So what does Kami the messenger want to tell me about my tails and ears that is so important you needed to visit? While shaking his head and saying, Sorry, I don't know where that came from, Jericho said. That's your body trying to adjust to itself. Your snapping attitude is because you're agitated. It will go away, but let me explain these new changes. Her gifts were left for you by Kyubi. You didn't get them until you were ready for them, but that hollow messed with your mind and body with its little mind game and forced the changes on both you and your Zanpakuto. Naruto blinked and said, Gift from the fox, why? Your wizard form will actually activate like the release of your Shinkai, except you will call out your Zanpakuto's second name. When you make 2 of your blades while making single blades, they will remain white while 2 will be black. In staff form, 1 will be white and the other will be black. Black swords absorb spiritual energy from your enemies, but it will not go towards you. It will be stored in your Zanpakuto for use in a long-range attack. I won't tell you what other effects your wizard form will have because it's a surprise. The rest of you is basically the same as before. Black swords absorb spiritual energy from your enemies, but it will not go towards you. It will be stored in your Zanpakuto for use in a long-range attack. I won't tell you what other effects your wizard form will have because it's a surprise. The rest of you is basically the same as before. Black swords absorb spiritual energy from your enemies, but it will not go towards you. It will be stored in your Zanpakuto for use in a long-range attack. I won't tell you what other effects your wizard form will have because it's a surprise. The rest of you are basically the same as before. Now that your new changes have been sorted out, I can tell you that you have a couple of questions you wish answered. I already know them, so I will. Yes, what your Zanpakuto said was real. A test was given where you would be pressed where you would want to face and fight Yamamoto. I won't tell you what the test was because you passed it, and Yamamoto has no memories of it like you and everyone else except your Zanpakuto. I changed the memories because you don't have to worry about things that were lies to begin with. If anyone asks you later, tell them it was just your inner hollow trying to break you, which is partially true. Those 3 women care for you. No, their feelings for you weren't part of any test. They each want to be with you for their own reasons. However, Cammy did do one thing for you. Cammy knew you were scared of how someone can love you when you're broken like you are inside, so Cammy put you in a situation where the girls had to choose if they wanted to face your memories, and they did. Yes, that's right. The part where you became a wizard was originally created by Cammy, who put it in place after Cammy decided that the things this new hollow is doing has to stop. Naruto asked. Why? Jericho said. To eliminate a weakness that could be exploited later. You're afraid to get close to people and it's destroying you from the inside. It would eventually force you to break and destroy yourself and everyone around you. You'll have no chance to help them while they learn about you. Now that they know you and still love you, if not more, then you no longer have to hide away and weaken yourself by carrying the burden on your own. Now that's all I can say. You'll have to figure out where to go from there with your personal life. Cammy usually doesn't get that involved in a person's life but rather your own unique one. You gained the blessing of one of Cammy's pets, remained pure in the darkness, and a few other things that gained you a lot. I'm saying that has caught Cammy's interest. Naruto sighed at this and Jericho said, Sadly, this isn't actually a social call. I have orders from Cammy to deliver this to you. He'll explain what you need to do. If you need backup, show this to Yamamoto and he can verify it for everyone. Good day. As he handed Naruto a scroll before disappearing, Naruto groaned and opened the scroll and started reading and his eyes widened and he yelled. What? The scream alerted the attention of those still in the Shihōin compound, and they came running. The door opened and Kushina, Orihime, Minato, and Yoruichi came running. Yoruichi asked, What's wrong? As she looked around the room. She saw Naruto reading a scroll with a look of astonishment on his face before he closed his eyes and said, I need you to send me a message now, Kushina said. Naruto, you are still hurt and weakened from your recent experience. You don't need to. Naruto opened his eyes and said, I don't have time for injuries right now. I need a message to be sent to all the captain plus Yamamoto to meet me in our briefing room now. I'm not speaking as your son right now. I'm speaking as Captain Commander of the Godai 13. Now, will someone please send the messages to those people and hurry up? As he got out of bed and started to get dressed, Minato asked, What's wrong, Naruto? Naruto frowned as he put on his pants and noticed his tails started just as his pants ended and said, Report to your unit, father. Your captain will inform you shortly. As he put on his captain jacket without a shirt and said, Now please have someone send the message for me. I don't have time to explain or lives will be lost. As he walked away, he appeared in the Godai 13 meeting room and started thinking about what to say before he started coughing blood and thought, Shit, those quick steps just injured my ribs again, Kaiga said. Try changing forms. If your body is aligned differently, it might make it easier to breathe and move, as your breathing becomes labored from the pain. Naruto frowned and transformed into a cat. He breathed once and thought, Thank you, Kage, you helped me, but I can't move much because I can still feel my wounds. Back at the Shihōin compound, Yoruichi frowned and said, I think we'd better do as he said. He's never used his office with any of us before, so something must have happened and it got in the way of the scroll he was reading. If there was never a scroll in this room before, that means someone came in after we left, and whoever delivered it. Kushina nods and says, I'll send the message. As she quickly left to find a hell butterfly. Chapter 14. About 20 minutes later, Naruto was still in his cat form when all the captains appeared and saw Naruto in his cat form, and Yamamoto came and said, What's so important that you called me here, Naruto? Naruto turned back into a human for a moment, and started coughing blood again and threw a scroll to Yamamoto, and quickly turned back into a human and said, Our mutual friend gave it to me. As he coughed like a cat too, Captain Unohana asked, What's up with you, Shihōin-sama? Naruto coughed again and said. I'm still hurt from recent events, and when I came here I got injured again, Unohana said. Let me check you out, Naruto said. Not yet. First, what do you think we should do, Yamamoto? I admit that I don't know all the procedures to deal with this currently, and I request your advice and help in dealing with this, Yamamoto frowned and said. Very well, I must agree that you would never have been prepared for this to happen on such short notice. I will give standing orders on this to get this all working, and Unohana, please go ahead and start treating it while you listen, because Kami has given orders and it appears we are about to go to war again. The eyes of each of the captains widened for a moment, and Unohana said, Yes, Yamamoto-sama. As she walked up to Naruto and said, Please return to your human form. Naruto did so, and she started to look through it, and frowned even more as she looked through it. With the human world closed, the threat of hollows to the elemental countries will be a real problem now, because before they had a full buffet to feed themselves. But now that he's gone, it won't be long before they detect the humans there. Kami also wants us to deal with this new hollow. Kami feels that it's a threat to the balance of the universe. Because Kami feels that we've been slacking off cleaning up our messes that caused the elemental countries to begin. Kami has made it where we will no longer be invisible to people with low spiritual energy. When we and hollows go there, we will look just like we do now, and hollows will be as real as the summons would be. It's Kami's way of forcing our hand. Any questions? Kami feels like it's a threat to the balance of the universe. Because Kami feels like we've been slacking off cleaning up our messes that caused the elemental countries to begin. Kami has made it where we will no longer be invisible to people with low spiritual energy. When we and hollows go there, we will look like we do now, and hollows will be just as real as summons would ever be. It's Kami's way of forcing our hand. Any questions? Kami feels like it's a threat to the balance of the universe. Because Kami feels like we've been slacking off cleaning up our messes that caused the elemental countries to begin. Kami has made it where we will no longer be invisible to people with low spiritual energy. When we and hollows go there, we will look like we do now, and hollows will be just as real as summons would ever be. It's Kami's way of forcing our hand. Any questions? Sayafun said. Sir, what about containment? Naruto frowned and said. Containment is no longer possible. Because humans will be able to see us and hollows may attack us, and we have been given permission to eliminate any and all threats. While coughing as Unohana healed him, Yamamoto said, Naruto is right. Because of the way the orders are written I'm giving, Naruto urged him and said, No, Yamamoto. This blood stains my hands, so I will give the orders. You are and have been a well-respected leader of this world. I will not allow you to sully your name with the Gianist we are speaking of to unleash. That order will come from me. After this mess is over, the souls that were killed by us are going to be on an uproar. It could cause a civil war here. To make sure that doesn't happen, I will take responsibility for this, and to prevent war, I will be the one receiving the punishment later. The people here will need someone they trust to carry them out after this mess has been resolved. As he sat down looking Yamamoto in the eyes, Yamamoto looked at Naruto and said, You mean what you say, Naruto? In the event that you witness a fight that will result in the loss of human life, you must determine which lives will not result in further deaths, and the one you determine will cause the deaths of the most people is the one you must eliminate, and quickly send their souls here or to hell, whoever they are sent to. That doesn't mean I want you to just go and kill everyone because you can. If you can end the fight without deaths, do so while we try to resolve the main issues Kami has right now. Any questions? Ichigo said. Yes, what are our real plans? Yamamoto said. We will split up as follows. Squad 12 is to abandon all research projects for the time being unless they resolve the issue with chakra or the new hollow. Squad 2 is to start trying to locate the Bijus and free them. Squads 3, 5, and 11 are to start monitoring the elemental countries for souls to send hollows to and follow the orders Naruto just gave to end conflicts quickly. Squad 4 is to start preparing for the injured. 6 and 10 will work to prevent Soul Society from going to war when all the new souls start arriving. Squad 7 and 8 will be on standby to provide backup if anyone needs it, and Squad 13 will act as communication so the other squads are all kept aware of the situation, Naruto said. Yamamoto, I have a request, Yamamoto said. Go ahead, Naruto, Naruto said. I'd like to temporarily form a small team to track down a possible lead I found on the new hollow. I discovered that he had a bloodline from the elemental countries called the Sharigan, and I know someone I could get information on him from, Yamamoto said. Okay. Who would be your team? Naruto said. I'll take Tenten and Yoruichi with me, Yamamoto said. I thought you would have taken Saifan instead of Yoruichi, Naruto said. The thought had crossed my mind, but in this time of need I thought it would be best if she was with her team, Saifan said. Actually, if I may ask a question. Will your team be returning to meet up with the people you met earlier? Naruto frowned and said. Yeah, why? Saifan said. Well, it might be easier if it was me who went because in case you forget to prevent any more questions from being raised about you, I told them I was your bodyguard. If you went back now without me, it might attract more unwanted attention and put more of an advantage, making it harder to get information, Yamamoto said. You raise a valid point, Saifan, but so did Naruto. If I'd put you with Naruto, who would take over as captain in your place while you're gone? We have another captain-level person who is somewhat familiar with the elemental countries who could temporarily take over after training with both Saifan and Yoruichi in the past, and knows how the second squad works. The only reason she's not a captain anymore is because she's as good at healing as she is at killing, Yamamoto said. I see, you mean Kushina, right? Ichigo said. Yes, sir. Your skills are unquestionable to everyone here, and with the help of the vice-captains of the second squad, you can make sure everyone is doing what is needed right now and give Naruto time to gather this information. He shouldn't have been more than a month at most, and we can keep things under control until then. After all, he may be your replacement, but he's still pretty new to all of this. Besides, Saifan will probably get distracted if you separate her from her precious Naruto-kun, causing a few captains to laugh and Saifan to glare at him, Unohana said. Sir, if I may, I have healed Naruto-san to the best of my ability right now, but he needs at least 2 days of rest, preferably in the 4th unit, to ensure he doesn't reopen his wounds. However, he will still be airborne for at least a week after that, so perhaps an extra guard wouldn't hurt with as vital as that information might be, and that would also buy the 12th squad time to research the Uchiha clan further, but for some reason all data on them is gone from our archives, as there has never been an Uchiha in Soul Society. I also have to agree that Kushina could replace Saifan temporarily as captain. The only reason she hasn't advanced further than she has is because she is a good healer, only being bested in healing powers by Orihime, my second, and I, but she could go toe-to-toe with Kenpachi in fighting skills, Yamamoto said. Very well, I'll take over as Captain Commando of Squad 1 while you're gone, but you won't be leaving for 3 days, giving you time to properly recover and rest, while Saifan, you'll use those 3 days to help Kushina get used to the second squad. Until Hollow starts appearing, I want you to try and lay low. If no one else has anything else, inform your squads and prepare for war. Each of the captains nodded and started to leave, and Naruto stood up and grimaced, and Unohana said, Relax and don't use Shuinpa or you'll get injured again. Just walk with me back to force so we can treat you faster. Naruto nods and Yamamoto said, Just a moment before you take him, I'd like to speak with him privately. Unohana nods and leaves, and once the door closed, Yamamoto said, You're doing well, Naruto, but you don't have to carry the burden alone. I was a fool to give you all this power at once, as you really are. I'm not ready for everything yet. Once this mess is over, I'll take you aside and help you prepare for situations like this. I know this must all be overwhelming, but remember, you're just one piece of a bigger puzzle. Naruto nodded and said, I will, sir, but I don't understand what to do. I feel like I'm being given power over all of this, but I have no idea what the rules are. Yamamoto nods and said, That's why I'll help you once things calm down. For now, rest and don't worry about Soul Society. I'll take care of this until this mess is sorted out. Final, Naruto said. Okay. As he shuddered, clutching his sides. Yamamoto opened the door and said, Take it now. I have a lot to do. Unohana nods and leads Naruto away, and after they left, Yamamoto sat down and took out a cup of tea and thought, At least this way I can avoid my wife. I forgot how much her voice sounds like a banshee's scream when she gets angry, and I didn't like all my Ika Paradise books I took from the elemental countries. Chapter 15. Naruto sighed as he stretched and thought. Unohana didn't have to put me to sleep all those days. It had been 4 days since Orihime, and Kushina along with Unohana after a debate deemed him still unfit to leave the bed until today, even though he healed after the second day. As he put on his black pants and looked at his 2 tails sticking out right where his pants stopped. He put on his white shirt and grabbed his captain's jacket and put it on. A voice said, "You know, I still don't know how you stop wearing the traditional Shinigami outfit." Naruto looked up and said, "Hello, Captain Ichigo." Ichigo walked in, closed the door, and said, "Can't you call me Grandpa?" Naruto said, "I'll do it when I'm off duty, but I'm getting ready to leave for the elemental countries." Ichigo put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "We need to talk first." Naruto frowned and said, "Remove your arm." With bitterness in his voice, Ichigo saw the look on Naruto's face and shook it off, saying, "Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you didn't try to run before we could talk." Naruto sighed and said, "Sorry about that, my emotions are still a little messed up and I don't like people touching me so much because I'm not used to it. I used to be able to fake it, but now my emotional mask is completely gone and Ichigo nods and says, "I completely understand. I'm basically the same way. When I was alive, people made fun of me for my hair and teased me, and words hurt more than punches, but I eventually got to where I don't like anyone touching me until the shit hits the fan and I become a Shinigami." Naruto nods, slowly seeing his grandfather in a new light, and asked, "So what is it you wanted to talk to me about?" Ichigo leaned against the wall and said, "If you have to use your wizard form, there are a few things you should know. 1. Always keep your emotions in check and your resolve set. If your resolve weakens, then your wizard may make another bid to control even if it says it can't. 2. Don't use it unless necessary. For a long time I could only use it for 11 seconds and then I weakened to the point where a civilian could kill me. 3. If you do use it, take out the enemy quickly." Naruto nods and said, "Okay, I'll remember that. Anything else?" Ichigo sighed and said, "Yeah, keep an eye on the girls. I don't care how strong they are, who they are, or where they come from. There are times when a woman will see something or hear something that will simply weaken them, whether emotionally or physically. If that happens, you will have to be there to bring them together." Naruto frowned and said, "I think I can do that." "I don't really understand it," Ichigo snorted and said, "Welcome to the male world. We never understand women, and just when we think we do, they change the rules. End of story. Don't even try to understand them." Naruto looked at Ichigo and said, "So it's not just me, huh?" Ichigo said. "No, they're all men." Naruto nods and said, "Good. Well, that's all you needed to tell me." Ichigo looked around and said, "One more thing, if you need us to be there for you, Naruto. Every captain has had their eye on you at one point or another since you were born, and we all want a chance in Konoha. Don't hesitate to ask. Zangetsu would love to show you something to be afraid of, and Kenpachi would love any fight," Naruto said. "Maybe someday. I have other things to worry about than Konoha right now. I have to go play with a bastard's overly inflated ego," Ichigo muttered. "Sounds like Rukia's brother." In a low voice, Naruto asked. "What?" Ichigo waved his hands and said, "Nothing, you better hurry, all the girls are waiting for you." Naruto nods and takes his Zanpakuto and gives Ichigo one last look before walking away. Once he left, a voice said, "You know you could have let me fight him first," Ichigo said. "All in good time, Kenpachi, all in good time." "Are your squads ready?" Kenpachi said. "Yeah, we'll head out from the north in 2 hours, how about you?" Ichigo said. "We'll be arriving from the west in 4 hours, and the third squad will arrive from the south 2 hours later. Where the triad uses, run in groups of 3 every 10 miles. It's our best bet," Kenpachi nods and said. "It's about time we stood up and did something. I've been getting on board," Ichigo smiled and said. "That's not what I heard Unohana say." "I heard she's been keeping you busy." Kenpachi swung his sword where Ichigo had been, but hit nothing but air as Ichigo sped away. Naruto appeared in front of Shihōin's property and saw the 4 girls there and asked, "So, are you all ready?" Tenten said. "Yeah, we were dealing with our dads. They're tracking Sasuke while we were talking in Waveland. I'm glad, though, we don't have to use those giant bodies again. I don't like them, Naruto smiled and said. Alright, let's go out and try not to attract too much attention. Yoruichi took the form of a cat and asked. So, what are you going to do with your tails? Naruto frowned and said. I'll turn into a cat when we get close and say I'm close, but I don't want to be there to stop the fights. Sayafan picked up Yoruichi and put her over his shoulder as they headed toward the gates. They remained silent as they passed through the checkout station, and Naruto asked, Is everything okay? As they walked through the tunnel between worlds, Ayam said, Tenten and I are a little nervous. We haven't fought any hollows and now we're in a war, Naruto said. Stay close to Yoruichi and Sayafan. Between the three of you, you'll both be fine, but if you have to fight one of them, break the mask completely. It's the only way, and remember, it's either them or us. Each girl nodded and Sayafan said, Well, here we are. As they walked out of the tunnel and were all standing in the air, Tenten closed her eyes, and when the ribbon spirits appeared she said, This way. I can tell Paparyatsu. As she began to guide them west, Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, Looks like you and Ayam have been training hard. I'm proud of you both. Both girls smiled a little and Yoruichi said, Save it for later, lover boy. We need to meet up with the others. Naruto frowned and said, You're no fun, grandma. Yoruichi smiled and said, No, I'm not the kind of fun you're interested in, that's all. Naruto missed a step as he was about to step on a tree while walking in the air and almost fell to the ground below, but he caught himself. He looked at the cat and stuck his tongue out at it, making all the girls laugh. Naruto landed on the ground and the others followed him, and Naruto said, So this is the wave, huh? Tenten said. I think so. I've never been here before. Ayam saw the others' looks and said, I don't think either of us did. Come on, I can tell Dad's around, Sayafan asked. How are we going to do this? A voice said. Do what? When they turned and saw Dustin and Tucci standing there, Naruto waved and both girls ran to their dads and hugged them, and Naruto smiled softly and Sayafan said, You still feel cheated, huh? Naruto frowned and nodded, and Sayafan put his arms on his shoulder and said, After this is over, you'll spend a month with your parents getting to know them. You deserve it, and I don't care if I have to fight Yamamoto to get it. We can come to an agreement, Naruto snorts and says. Fine. I'll make it in official order. In a deadpan voice and thought. I mean, if they don't execute me to stop the riot, I'm afraid he's going to hit the Soul Society for this, Naruto asked loud enough for everyone to hear. So where's the team? Dustin said. He's half an hour away at the client's house along with all the other rookie genin and team guy. Naruto frowned and said, Shit, we could still talk to him privately away from the others without facing each other, Dustin said. I doubt it. The sensei are working on their equipment on the ground after they were attacked by the Demon Brothers and Zabuza on the way here at the same time. The sensei was able to stop them. The three escaped thanks to the help of a fourth person wearing a ninja hunter mask. Naruto sighed, looked at Tenten and Ayam and said, Alright, let's head out. Lead the way. Sayafan put down Yoruichi, who ran away into the forest, and Naruto looked where she went, and Sayafan said, She'll go see what information she can gather on this Zabuza guy in the area so we don't get involved in the local fights. Naruto nodded and remained silent while Ayam and Tenten talked to their parents, who led the way, and Sayafan stood next to Naruto, turned into a cat whose Sayafan picked up as he walked at the back of the group. Soon they came out of the woods and saw a house with a small wooden bridge, and Dustin stopped and said, Ahoy at the house. Naruto looked at him and thought, Why didn't he call? A swarm of insects entered the house from the surrounding trees, and Naruto thought, From that, I guess it must be Shino. I never really knew anything about her abilities other than her using insects. Naruto watched as the door opened and Kakashi came out and looked at the group and narrowed his eyes and asked, What do you want and why are you here? Tenten stepped forward and said, We have some questions we wanted to ask if we could come and talk. We mean no harm to you or whoever your client is. We'll leave after we get the answers, Kakashi asked. Where is Naruto or the guy who claims to be him? As he looked around the clearing, Sayafan said, He's close and waiting. He just doesn't want to cause a fight since we got off to a bad start last time. Guy appeared and said, My former student has decided to honor us with her youth. To what do we owe her the honor of her visit? Tenten said. Like we said, we just came to ask a few questions about something someone here can answer for us, Kakashi asked. And how do you know who's here? Dustin said. Because Tsuchi and I have been following your group for the past 3 days, Kakashi, when we heard that they wanted to talk to you and Sasuke about the Sharingan. Remember how they talked about another Sharingan user besides Itachi, Sasuke, and you? It's been causing trouble for the kids here, and they thought if they came and talked to you guys it might help them avoid trouble with the other Sharingan user. Kakashi frowned and Guy looked at Kakashi and said, You may come in, Tsuchi said. Thanks, Guy. We appreciate it, and we'll leave as soon as we can get answers so as not to interrupt your mission, Kakashi said. If we help you, then you must tell us about this other Uchiha, Dustin said. We don't know if he's an Uchiha, Kakashi. We just know he has the Sharingan. He might be like you and have an eye transplant he got before the Uchiha massacre. As he walked in leading the way while Sayafan arrived last. When he walked in, he saw several teenagers sitting or standing next to a red-eyed woman and a man smoking, and he looked around and saw another man drinking and another woman who looked a little scared. Akamaru started barking and Kiba said, Get that cat out of here if you don't want it to get hurt. Akamaru doesn't like cats, Sayafan, who was petting the cat, said. We won't be long, so I'll hug him. Akamaru, who was in Kiba's jacket, jumped out of the jacket and landed on the coffee table before jumping towards Sayafan. Sayafan started to move to stop the dog when the cat jumped out of his arms and flipped in the air in a circle, and its tail changed from 1 to 2 tails, and the tails wrapped around Akamaru and threw him towards Kiba. Everyone was shocked, and Asuma said, Shit, it's a Nikomata. The cat frowned and said, Can't you keep Akamaru on a leash, Kiba? With Naruto's voice surprising everyone, Kiba paled and said, Nah, Naruto, it's you. The cat frowned and jumped in the air, and when he turned around he turned back into a human, and everyone looked at him and were surprised by his new appearance, except Kakashi and Sasuke, and Naruto said, Yes. It's me. My bloodline allows me to change into a cat, Ino said. It's those cat tails and ears you have. They look cute. In a fangirlish voice, a female voice said, Yes, they are. It's what happens when someone in our bloodline completely dominates. As everyone looked over, they saw another cat. Naruto turned around and said, Get your back quickly. Kurenai cleared her throat and said, Excuse me for asking, but who exactly are you all and why are you here? I don't mean to be rude, but you walked right into our mission and, the cat said, Your mission is to protect the bridge builder Tazuna from the right cat. Making everyone look at the cat, Kakashi narrowed his eyes and said, Yeah, but why do you ask? The cat entered the room and jumped onto the table and said, When Tsuchi and Dustin told us about your encounter with Zabuza and the Demon Brothers, I went to gather information on them so our group could avoid conflict while we were here because we have our own problem to deal with, Kakashi said. With Soul Society. Making Naruto and his group look at him, Naruto asked, And how do you know that, Kakashi? Kakashi took out his book and said, I have my ways. While ignoring their stares, the cat said, Anyway, I heard that Zabuza and his group are planning to attack the bridge tomorrow since everyone rested again since they weren't seriously injured. I also found out that Gojo is planning to kidnap Tazuna's daughter and use her as insurance in case Zabuza fails. They have a compound on the other side of the island. You can't miss it since all the other buildings there have been destroyed. Causing everyone to look at her, Naruto frowned and said, I see. Anything else you learned, Granny? Sakura asked. Grandma. The cat approached the islander and disappeared behind him, and she stood with her arms crossed over her chest completely naked, and said, Yes, I'm his grandmother, why? While all the boys flew back with a nosebleed except Naruto. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who was trembling, and said, Damn, I was sure the bastard was gay. Stop thinking badly of my grandma, damn it. As he walked over and kicked Sasuke, Kiba, Shino and Kakashi, Tenten looked at the trembling forms of Guy and Lee who were muttering. Too young, Tsunami said. Excuse me, miss, but could you put on some rags? I have a little son upstairs who isn't ready to see a woman like that. Sayafan reaches into a bag and throws out a couple of cloths and Yoruichi puts them on, and Kurenai, who was looking at Asuma who was approaching, asked, If you're Naruto's grandmother like he says, how do you look so young? Sayafan said. It's a side effect of losing their bloodline. They age more slowly. It's one of the reasons their clan was so sought after throughout history, As everyone got back on their feet and all the kids except Naruto were still looking at Yoruichi, Guy asked, "So you want information about the Sharingan? What do you need to know?" Naruto said. "Everything." Guy frowned and looked at Kakashi, who shrugged and said, "Prove you're really Naruto." Naruto frowned and said, "You know I can't do the one thing you want as proof because in order to activate my bloodline I had to lose the ability to use chakra and in the same process I lost that," Kakashi said, ignoring the surprised looks from the other jounins. "Yeah, I know, but there still has to be some way to prove your worth, Naruto." Naruto sighed as he put his hand on his head and said, "Fine," as he took off his captain coat and handed it to Saifan and then took his shirt, and when he took it off everyone gasped except his girls when they saw his muscles but also his scars, and Naruto said, "Happy now, these are all the scars I have from the villagers' attacks because of what my father did to save the village. If you want more proof then you can go to hell, Kakashi, because that's all I have. In fact, if you look here you should see the same scar I turned 6 when you and Weasel saved my life." As he pointed to one above his kidney, Kakashi frowned and said, "Fine, I believe in your Naruto, and as I can see, you don't have that anymore." Naruto nods, put on his captain's shirt and jacket and said, "Now, can we get the information?" "What exactly does the Sharingan do?" Sasuke said. "Why do you want to know so much about my dope bloodline?" "I mean, if there's someone else out there with that, I have the right to know." Naruto looked up at the ceiling and thought. "Why can't I get a simple answer?" Ayam said. "Listen, Uchiha-san, we need to know because the boy is a threat to our family and friends. We need to find out what he is capable of doing to him because those who have faced him have already had bad results, but fortunately so far no one has died. But they have come close, so please tell us what you can." Sasuke started to say something when a beep was heard and Saifan reached into his pocket and took out a cell phone and opened it and said, "Saifan here." Saifan frowned as he listened and said, "Fine, I'll inform the others, thanks." As he closed it and looked at Naruto and leaned in and whispered in his ear, "The second squad has found 2 Jinchuriki already in the cloud and 1 in Suna, and they have freed the demons that were inside them, but they had to take all 3 into protective custody because their villages tried to kill them." Naruto frowned and said, "Where are they putting the 3 of them now for protective custody?" "I mean, I don't think they can take them home," Saifan, who had taken a step back, said. "Currently, the second squad has transferred the 3 of them to a safe house we have here in the elemental countries. But it seems that the 3 of them are going to die because they can't handle the process that well," Naruto said. "Alright, contact the 4th squad and have Unohana send someone to make their last hours here as painless as possible. Then, have the second squad track down the other 5 and deal with them accordingly." Saifan nods and walks outside, and Sakura asked, "Why do you order him around, Naruto?" Naruto looked at Sakura and said, "I'm not answering you now, Sakura. If you don't mind, I have things I need to do and places to go, so please give me the information about the Sharingan so you can get back to your mission and I can get out of here," a voice said. "Yeah, run away because you can't do anything here. You act like a big ass but you're nothing compared to Cat." "He'll kill you," Naruto snorted and said. "You can't kill the child of death, so what made you afraid of this idiot cat anyway?" "Even the Jounins seem a little tense." Asuma took the cigarette out of his mouth and said, "Gato is the leader of the multi-billion-dollar shipping empire. He's got his hands in drugs, the slave trade, money laundering. You name it, he's got a piece of the action. He's got this country in a stranglehold and is strangling the life out of it. He publicly executed the little boys there named Inari, his stepfather, last year in front of the whole village with his family in front of him. Where are you here to help liberate the country by having the bridge finished?" Naruto stood there for a moment and said, "I see, so can I get that information now?" "I don't really care." Tenten walked over and patted him on the head and said, "Can't we do something for them?" Naruto sighed and looked at Ayam, who looked sad, and then at Tenten, who was about to cry too, and frowned and said, "Okay, look, if this Gato is a problem for you, how about a deal? If we take Gato out for you, then you'll give us the information about the Sharingan that we want." Sasuke snorts and says, "What can a dead idiot like you do?" Naruto said. "Take the deal and you'll find out," Kakashi said. "I don't know what your sensei Naruto thinks, but I'm not going to let a genin go against Gato and his men," Naruto said. "Tucci, Dustin, make sure no one follows me," as he turned and started walking toward the door. Kakashi appeared in front of the door and said, "I won't let you pass, Naruto," Naruto said. "Some people never learn." As he walked away, shocking everyone except Iam, Tenten, Saifun, and Yoruichi, Ino asked, "Where did he go?" Yoruichi said, "Based on his energy, I'd say about 3 miles east of here right now, heading towards Gato's place." As she walked away, Guy asked, "What was that?" "Even I can't go that fast, and who was she?" Saifun said. "That was the goddess of Flash, Yoruichi Shihōin Urahara, mother of Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of Konoha and grandmother of Captain Commander Naruto Uzumaki Shihōin, the god of Flash." All the adults besides Kakashi paled, and Kurenai said, "You mean Naruto is the Yandame's son?" Saifun nods and said, "Yes," Shikamaru said. "If what you said is true, why has Naruto been an orphan his entire life? And why has his family come looking for him now? Something doesn't add up." Saifun looked at Kakashi and said, "Why don't you tell them, Kakashi-san? Why don't you tell them how the Konoha Village Council has been trying to execute Naruto since the day he was born? Why don't you tell them how everything they know about the Kyuubi being truly defeated was a lie since it's free again? Why don't you tell them how all those scars Naruto has on him are from where the villagers have tried time and time again to kill him because his father decided to make him a Jinchuriki?" With a smirk on his face, every adult who wasn't in Soul Society, except Kakashi, paled and looked at him and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Shikamaru frowned and said, "So that's why everyone seems to hate Naruto." Attracting everyone's attention, Ino asked, "What are you talking about, Shikamaru? What do you mean the truth about the Kyuubi is a lie? What does all this have to do with Naruto?" While looking confused, Shikamaru looked at Asuma and said, "Jinchuriki, the power of the human sacrament. It's a word given to someone who has a demon sealed within them." Causing all the teens to go wide-eyed except for Tenten and Iam, Sakura said. "So Naruto is a demon." Faster than she could blink, Sakura was planted against the wall by Saifun as the board she hit shattered. Saifun said with venom in his voice, "Don't ever call him a demon. He never had a choice in the matter. His father, in order to save you and everyone else in that damn village, sealed the demon in him, summoning the leader of the Shinigami at the cost of his mortal life. Naruto was only 3 bucking pinky hours old when that happened. Demons are immortal and can't be killed even if you seal them inside a baby. As soon as a demon is released by dying a child or by being released through different means, they go into hibernation. Until they regain their strength, they return from wherever they go to hibernate. He had the Kyuubi in him before he left Konoha, but when he was taken to where the rest of his family was, he underwent a ritual that allowed the Kyuubi to be released from him, so he no longer had the demon in him. We made it public so he could use his bloodline. If Kyuubi ever fights Konoha again, that's your problem, because personally, everyone in Soul Society believes Konoha should be burned to the ground for what they did to him. Don't ever call him that again, or I'll kill you." She fumed at the end. Sakura sneered as she rubbed the blood from her mouth and said, "Oh yeah, bitch, and what did we do so badly to the last damn one, huh?" Tenten said. "Shut up, Sakura, before I shut your mouth." Saifun, Iam and I had to watch all 3 of those, along with several others. We had to observe every memory of his life since birth to help save his life from a powerful genjutsu, and guess what? He has a photographic memory of everything that happened to him from 2 weeks old onward. He remembers being locked in a broomstick as a baby. He remembers being kicked out of the orphanage at 4 in the dead of winter to live on the streets. He remembers every time someone charged him $15 for a loaf of molded stale bread. He remembers every time the apartment the third gave him was broken into and destroyed. He remembers being raped by villagers and shinobi, making everyone who didn't know widen their eyes and make Hinata, Kurenai, and Ino gasp and almost tear up. You call him dead last, but when your teachers take your books and burn them and then cast genjutsu on your test and kick you out of class for asking a question, then there's no way you're anything but dead last in the test. It wasn't until he earned Irika's respect that he ever stood a decent chance in the academy, but by then it was too late for him to recover before he graduated. You want to know what's funny? You think he's dead last, but then tell me how in broad daylight he painted the Hokage monument undetected until he was finished and led Anbu, Chunin, and a couple jounin on a chase for 3 hours before he was finally caught by Irika, who knew Naruto was better than people give him credit for. making each of the teens remember the incidents in school as well as that prank. Sakura frowned and asked, "If what you're saying is true, then why were we told that the Yondaime killed Kyubi? I mean, it's in the Academy's books." Trying to deny what she was hearing, Asuma sighed and said, "Dad passed a law that said it was illegal to tell anyone who didn't know the truth about Kyubi's fate to anyone under penalty of jail time or death so Naruto could try and have a normal life, but the adults either ignored the law or evaded it by shunning him and telling every single one of you that he was a bad person or something and to stay away from him. That's why I left Konoha for almost 7 years, because I begged Dad to let me adopt him after I once stopped an attack on him, but the council made it so no one could adopt him because he was an adult. They made Dad legally make him an adult at the age of 4 so that way he could have his own apartment, since no one would take him and every orphanage kicked him out." Taking away the doubt that the teens had in their mind, Kiba said, "I can't believe all this. Why would people do that to him?" Kurenai sighed as she looked at the teens and said, "Because people are afraid, Kiba. I remember the Kyubi's attack. I remember seeing people dying left and right. I saw how the Kyubi just ignored the attacks it was throwing at it, and kept coming. Everyone was helpless to stand up to it," Shino said. "Humans are illogical when it comes to those who are different. My entire clan knew about him since most of us saw him as similar to us. But we even had a few members who weren't logical enough to distinguish between the error within him and his. When we found out, we kicked them out of the clan." As she pushed up her glasses, Hinata said, stuttering and in a quiet voice, "I remember when he was 8, Naruto had tried to hide in the forest for his birthday to avoid being attacked, but some members of my clan used our bloodline to find him and led a group of villagers to attack him. I actually killed a member of my clan that day using the bird seal from the cage to save him," causing Niji's eyes to widen as he flinched and moved away from Hinata a little, Asuma said. "And the worst part is, he never knew why he was being targeted until the day he graduated, when Mizuki tricked him and tried to kill him. Hell, he didn't even know who his parents were from what I understand, though only a few of us did, myself included," Dustin said. "He didn't. When we took him and the girls to meet his family, that was one of the things we had to tell him. He didn't know if his parents had died or just abandoned him, like the villagers tried to tell him," Tucci said. "If it weren't for Ayam and me, he would have most likely starved to death over the years, since he couldn't eat anything but instant ramen that wasn't already spoiled." Guy looked at Kakashi and said, "You are terribly my junior rival. Why don't you say anything about your son Sensei, since we both saved him on several occasions?" Kakashi shrugged and said, "You say something, Guy." Guy frowned and said, "This isn't the time for cool attitudes, Kakashi." As he hit Kakashi on the head and Kakashi burst into smoke, shocking everyone, Sayafon frowned and said, "Kage Bunshin, he must have gone after Yoruichi-sama and Naruto." Hinata's eyebrow twitched, and she looked at Sayafon and asked, "What are you to Naruto-kun?" In her usual voice, Sayafon looked at Tenten and Ayam and said, "It's complicated. Let's just say we're close and leave it at that," Choji said. "How did the two of them know who his parents were? And if he had a family, then why didn't they take him in over the years?" Dustin sighed and said, "Tucci and I have known Kushina and Minato since before Minato went to Konoha and Kushina went to the hot tub when they were kids. We were all originally from Soul Society, and as kids we were sent to different villages because our house was in a war that we're still in." Shikamaru frowned and asked, "What war?" He couldn't be overlooked, and as a child not born there, Naruto, Tenten and Ayam wouldn't have been able to get into the village without dying, and they couldn't come look after him in Konoha for more than a few days because our enemies would have either tracked them down and then killed Naruto or used him against them and then killed him. The only thing any of us could do was give them a place to stay or help keep an eye on him when they came to check on him." Everyone frowned and Shikamaru said, "This is troublesome." As everyone seemed to think, Sakura said. "How could she smile so much if her life has been so bad?" Ayam said. "What he was hiding was a mask of emotions. He almost never showed his true smile." As she looked down, Guy frowned and looked at the woman and asked, "What is it you want to know about the Sharingan?" Tucci said. "As much as possible." Guy nods and says, "Well, on the other side of the island, Kakashi was jumping from tree to tree and saw a figure jump in front of him and said, 'So you saw them, Jiraiya?' Jiraiya nods and said, 'Yeah, I followed them when they hooked up with Tucci and Dustin. A Kagebunshin followed the cat since something seemed off, especially when I saw Naruto's tails. I learned where Gado's base is. Let's go earlier. It's too late. As he jumped, opening the way for Kakashi, Naruto, as he walked away, kept flash-stepping until he appeared on the other side of the island and saw a building that looked like a warehouse and frowned as he looked around, and a few moments later Yoruichi appeared beside him, and she asked, "So what are you planning, Naruto?" Naruto said, "I figure if that cat guy is as rich and filthy as they say, then he'll cost a lot of people their lives and more souls for us to cleanse, which we can't afford to happen right now, so I figure if I take him out, then it'll solve the problem for now." Yoruichi nods and says, "Well, what about all your men?" Naruto looked at the security personnel and said, "I figure if I go in as a cat, they won't know it's me and I'll be able to find and kill him easier." Yoruichi nods and she turns into a cat, and Naruto sighs and says, "Okay, you can come," Yoruichi said. "I don't remember asking for permission, and I wouldn't stay out even if you told me." Naruto looks at her and turns into a cat, and they both jump out of the tree and run towards the warehouse. They sneak behind a couple of barrels, and then after the patrol car passes they run towards the open bay door and quickly jump onto a stack of crates. They both sit up and look around, and Yoruichi swats Naruto with her tail and points towards a set of stairs leading up to an office, and Naruto nods and they both jump over the crates until they reach the stairs, and Naruto jumps onto the flat walkway at the top of the stairs near the crate and quickly turns around, raises his paw and whispers, "Door." Yoruichi nods and Naruto starts scratching at the door. This continues for several minutes until the door opens and he runs into the room. A few moments earlier, Cat was reading some documents at his desk when he heard a scratching noise and looked around and thought, "What's that noise?" The noise continued and he told his two guards, "Find that noise and get rid of it." One of the guards holding a sword said, "Yes, Cat," and walks across the room and then walks to the door and opens it only for a cat to run in, and the guard says, "Damn cat," as he turned and caught up with the cat. As he was about to grab him, the cat jumped up and scratched his face, and before jumping back into the air and changing while in the air into Naruto, who quickly drew his sword and said, "Glow bright Arachner Kaiga," as his sword transformed into his only blade and rushes at Gado, who had moved away from his desk, and slashed Gado from his right shoulder to his left hip, and Naruto turned around and blocked the guard's second swing and sent a kick at the man before Naruto grabbed Gado's body and quickly moved away as the first guardian reached for his sword. Naruto appeared outside the warehouse in the trees, and Yoruichi landed next to him moments later as Kakashi and Jiraiya landed in front of them, and Naruto threw the upper half of Gado's body with his head on the ground and said, "Mission accomplished, so we have a deal." Kakashi looked at Yoruichi and Jiraiya said, "Only if you answer a few questions." Naruto glared at him and said, "Well, take care of the mess." As he walked away with Yoruichi a few minutes behind them when Kakashi jumped in and sealed Gado's body. As Jiraiya waited for him, he narrowed his eyes when a shadow jumped out and thought, "Who is that and how come I can't get past them?" Chapter 16. Naruto entered the house where Tazuna lived and saw everyone depressed, and Naruto said, "Dead cat. So what's wrong with you all?" As he looked around, Yoruichi suddenly appeared beside her and she asked, "What's going on here?" "It seems someone has died," Sayafun said. "We have information about Guy's Sharingan," Sakura asked. "Do you really have the QB in you, Naruto?" Naruto looked at her, and then looked around and asked, "What are you talking about, Sakura?" Ayam said. "We told them some of the things we saw in their memories." Naruto frowned and said, "It doesn't matter, I know where those who care about me are, and that's all I need." "So what do we know now about the Sharingan?" As he looked at his three girls and their parents, Dustin said, "The Sharingan has several levels. The first level allows the user to copy hand seals and slows things down a bit. The second level slows things down more and gives the user a little warning as to what the jutsu is going to do and cancels some genjutsu. The third level cancels all genjutsu and also allows the user to cast genjutsu. They don't know anything about the other level besides the fourth level. They can release black flames that burn for 7 days and nights and can place a person in an ultimate genjutsu which can be used to set someone on fire for 72 hours in less than a second." Naruto frowned and opened his mouth as Jiraiya and Kakashi arrived in a swirl of leaves each, and Naruto said, "What about the ability to control the demon's chakra or implant suggestions into a person's mind?" Sayafun said. "They don't know anything about it. Other than what they say is that he's an Uchiha Madara who was able to control the Kyuubi but was killed by the Shōryame Hokage. Naruto nods and asked. Have you passed the information to Team 12? Sayafan said. Not yet. We had just finished talking when you arrived. Naruto nods and says. Okay, let's go. As he heads towards the door and Tazuna asked. Is Gato really dead? Naruto said. Yes, I gave the body to Kakashi. Kakashi held up a scroll and said. I have what's left of his body here, Sasuke said. Fight me, dope. Naruto looked at him and said. No. It's a pointless fight, Shino said. If I may ask, Naruto, would you be willing to talk with some of us for a while? We have a lot of questions about what we've heard, Shikamaru said. We could help them with the war they were talking about. Naruto looked at his companions who looked embarrassed, and Shikamaru, Shino and Asuma thought at the same time. So Naruto is the leader here, Naruto said. You can't. It's a war that will never end. It's a war that has cost the lives of hundreds of millions over the years. Just worry about your home and your village, Shino said. But it's also your village, Naruto. Naruto frowned and said. For now. I plan to speak to the Hokage and ask to renounce my shinobi status when I return to Konoha so I can leave. I currently have nothing in Konoha, Sakura said. What about your friends, Naruto? Naruto looked at Sakura and said. What friends, Sakura? The only people over the years who have truly turned my life around are the ones currently traveling with me besides the Hokage himself. To all of you I am nothing more than the last dead man, Hinata shouted, surprising everyone. That's not true, Naruto Keien. Naruto looked at her and bit his lip and said. Fine, you want to answer the questions, then ask them now. My friends and I will stay here until tomorrow since it's almost nighttime, but once we leave I won't answer anything else and I have the right to refuse any questions if I wish. Deal, Sasuke said. Deal? How did you get here so fast? Naruto said. I trained to be one, Sasuke said. Teach me. In a demanding voice, Naruto said. No, Jiraiya asked. What exactly are you, Captain Commander Naruto? Causing each of the soul warriors to flinch and everyone else to look at him strangely. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said. What do you mean? Jiraiya said. Your jacket, that has the kanji for Squad 1 on it. The girl over there, the one who claims to be your bodyguard, has the kanji for Squad 2 on hers. I'm guessing she's a captain commander as well, so what exactly are these squads? Naruto snorts and Sayafan chuckles and says. It's just that you called Narukin, things are going to heat up soon anyway. Naruto frowned as he jumped into the air and transformed back into a cat and jumped into Tenten's lap, and she started petting him, and Naruto said. Tell me what you know about Soul Society and how you know I'm a captain commander, and if I have enough information I'll fill in the blanks. Otherwise I refuse to answer. Deal. Jiraiya sat down and said. Okay, so you fought someone named Yamamoto, you fought something called Hollows. According to Soul Society, all the people here are originally from somewhere else, but they claim to have erased everyone's memories of where we're supposedly from. Everyone looked at Jiraiya and Naruto laughed and said. So it was you I mentioned when we were talking in the forest after you took Dustin and Tucci hostage. How did you hide your power level so well? Jiraiya said. I have my ways and you're right. I was there so you know what I heard, Naruto said. So what, if you heard everything, then you already know the answer to your question, Kakashi asked. Did you really meet your parents? If so, answer me, what is it that your father told me not to use again? Only he and I would know that answer, Naruto sighed and said. Sayafan, could you contact Squad 11 and find out that answer for me? Sayafan takes out his phone and says. This is Sayafan in Soul Society, yes. I need the data I'm sending to be sent to Squad 12 pertaining to the Sharingan, and I also need a question to be sent to Squad 11 to the 4th. Sit down and ask him what he told his student to never use again, and hurry that information up. As he closed his phone, Kiba said. But wait a minute, you all said that Naruto's father, the Yondaime, gave his life to seal the Kyuubi. How can he be alive to answer that question? Naruto said. Wait until we get an answer. As he closed his eyes and began to purr under the charged hand rubbing his fur, everyone looked at him, and everyone stayed silent and waited, and Tsunami looked at her dad, who said, I don't know either, dear. About 5 minutes of silence, a ringing sound was heard, and Sayafan opened his phone and said, Sayafan here, yeah, okay, I'll fill him in. When he hung up the phone he said, It's the Chidori. He told you it creates tunnel vision Kakashi no Baka and also wanted to let you know Naruto that Squad 11 has already run into 3 hollows. Low levels, but it's only a matter of time. Naruto frowned and said. I see, Kakashi said. I believe you now. I hate to say it, but you really are a... He trailed off as Naruto glared at him. Tsuchi, knowing what she was about to say, said, Is there anything else? I don't know about you, but I'm a little hungry and a little tired, so if everyone wants I can make you all some ramen to eat. Ayam got up and she and her dad went to the kitchen with Tsunami and started cooking, and Yoruichi said, I'll patrol the area for any activity. As she walked away, Naruto curled up and went to sleep, and Kiba looked at him and said, That's so mean seeing him like this. Tenten laughed, and Lee asked, So Tenten, how has your training been? Tenten said, Well actually, my 4 grandparents have been teaching me and they're really exciting stuff. Well, most of it anyway, Kakashi asked. Since it looks like Naruto is going to cut ties with Konoha, what about you, Tenten? Are you planning on doing so too? Tenten looked at her father and said, Maybe. I don't trust Konoha like I used to. Especially after I found out about the time a ninja threatened to grape me, kill me, and burn down our shop if they found out we sold any more weapons or clothes to Narukuen. Making everyone's eyes wide open, Tazuna said. If that's how Konoha treats its own, I won't be going to Konoha for any more missions after this one is done and paid for. You all sound just as bad as Gato or was. As he looked at the scroll containing Gato's body, every single Konoha ninja frowned at this. Inari's voice asked as she came down the stairs. If Gato's is dead, why are they still here, Dad, and why are you still going to pay them if that guy killed Gato like he said when these other people did nothing? Tsunami's voice said in a scolding tone. Inari, if it weren't for them, your grandfather would have returned home, and they must watch over him until the bridge is finished, Inari said. Then why don't we pay the Catman to protect him and just send these people away? Naruto said, still curled up in a ball. I don't need the money, kid, since Soul Society has no use for it. Besides, I have a war to fight, kid. I don't have time to babysit. As he stretched and popping sounds were heard, and Tenten grimaced and said, Claws, Naruto, Naruto said. Oops, sorry, Tenchan. As he jumped off of her and sat between her and Saifan and turned back to normal and put his arms over his head and stretched as his back appeared, and he put an arm around each girl and pulled them closer so they were all looking at him. Hinata's eyes widened as tears began to form at the corner of her eyes, and Naruto looked into her eyes and frowned and said, I know what you're thinking, Hinata, but there are things you need to know and understand. The only reason I agreed to answer any questions is because I always knew you had a crush on me. Causing all the teens to widen their eyes, Hinata asked. If you knew, then why didn't you say anything? Naruto looked at her and asked. So what, having your family punish you for being associated with the devil? Having the village call you a demon boar and treat you like they do me? I wouldn't wish that on my enemies, let alone someone who tried to be nice to me like you. I wanted to tell you so we could be friends, but you were always passing out or people were watching, so if we ever became friends it would have to be a life of lies. If I'm going to be with anyone as friends or more, then I don't want to live a lie. I've already done that my whole life. Besides, the dead shouldn't be with those who are alive, Shikamaru said. You've all said something like that before. Why do you keep referring to yourselves as if you're dead? Naruto sighed as he looked up and said, You asked me before what exactly I am, Captain Commander. I'll tell you since it doesn't matter now, and everyone will see proof of it soon anyway, since the war has taken a turn for the worse. I am Captain Commander Naruto Shihōin of the 1st Squad of the Shinigami Godai 13, replacing Captain Commander Yamamoto, who was the actual Shinigami that sealed Kyuubi inside me after my father summoned it. Dustin Tsuchi, former captain of the 2nd Squad Yoruichi and the current captain of the 2nd Squad Saifan here. We send the souls of the deceased to the other side or hell if they were evil, and we are currently in a war with the lost souls of people consumed by rage, hatred, and other dark emotions called hollow that devour the souls of the dead and the living. As he looked at everyone who looked stunned, a chuckle was heard, drawing everyone's attention to the stairs where a figure could be seen standing behind Inari, and Naruto's eyes widened and said, You, as he quickly stood up and grabbed his sword. As everyone got into a fighting stance, the figure wearing a black cloak and a spiral mask grabbed Inari and said, I wouldn't advise Shinigami unless you wish me to devour this boy's soul. Naruto frowned and said. What do you want here? The figure said. Toby, I'm here to tell you to remove the other Shinigami from here and leave the other Jinchuriki to me. I have plans for your souls, and your meddling in releasing the demons is ruining my plans, Naruto said. I can't do it, idiot. Let the boy go and let's go outside. Toby snickered and was about to say something when an energy arrow flew towards him, and he grabbed the arrow and said, who would have thought a Quincy would be here? You make strange bedfellows, Naruto-kun, Ayam said. Let go of the boy or the next one won't miss. As she drew back another arrow, Toby smiled and said, I don't think so. You're all just kids in this game. Let's see if you're as good as your ancestors. As he took something out of his hand and showed everyone it was a circular disc, and Ayam gasped and said, No, don't. But Toby broke it and evaporated into thin air and said, Have fun, Shinigami. As he gradually retreated, releasing Inari, Naruto said, Shit, I hate that bastard, Ayam said. Naruto-kun, we have to prepare to fight. That was the hollow bait. It's used to attract a large number of hollows. GGGGGGRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRR going on?" Naruto said. "I am Tenten, Dustin, Tucci. I want all of you to keep an eye on the house and those inside. Sayafun, contact Soul Society and inform them of what's going on, and tell them we need reinforcements." As he walked towards the door, Sayafun quickly took out his phone and Kakashi stood in front of Naruto and asked, "What's going on?" Just then the wall behind Kakashi opened up as a clawed hand ripped from the roof in front of the house, making several scream in panic, and Naruto said, "I don't have time for this shit, move it Kakashi," as he pulled his sword from its sheath and said, "Glow bright Arachner Kage," as his sword turned into a single-bladed lightsaber, and Asuma said, "The Raijin." Naruto ignored him and jumped next to Kakashi and stayed in the air as everyone ran out of the house to see what was going on, and they saw a 20-foot-tall black thing with a white mask on, and Naruto walked up to it and cut the mask in half. The body started to break down and turned into a man that everyone saw, and Tazuna said, "Cat." Sayafun said, "It's his soul, look at the plate on his chest. He has no chains, so he's dead." When she hit him with the butt of her Zanpakuto on the head, and Gato screamed, and they all saw gates rise from the ground with skulls on them, and Sakura screamed. "What is that?" Tucci said. "The gates of hell." As the gates opened and chains shot out, and grabbed the screaming cat, and pulled him inside before they closed and sank back into the ground. Suddenly everyone tensed up as another growl was heard, and they looked up at the sky, and several black-looking holes were appearing in the sky, and Ayam drew back her bow and began shooting at the hollows that were beginning to come out of the holes. Sayafun said, "Sting all enemies to death." As he released his Zanpakuto, and a golden stinger appeared in his hand, and he stood in front of a hollow, and stabbed it in the mask. Tenten said, "Transmute Full Metal Alchemist." As her hand was covered with a metal glove with a blade on it, and she clapped her hands and touched the ground, and a fist shot out of the ground and broke a hollow mask that was walking towards them. Tucci took off his shirt, made a fist, and said, "Tremble, Bigfoot." Since his arms and feet were covered in fur, and he was twice the height, length of his arms and legs. He then stomped his foot, and a wooden pole formed in the ground. He began walking toward a hollow, which charged at him. He reared back and swung the pole at the hollow's mask. Dustin said, "Might as well be Freeze Ice Dragon." As he pulled out a handle and the water formed a blade that froze, and then the ground around him turned to ice. He then jumped into the air and started walking in the air where Naruto and Sayafun were already fighting while Ayam shot more arrows. While everyone was fighting, Kakashi looked around and Yoruichi appeared in front of the group and said, "Shit, what's going on? Summoning all these hollows," Sakura said. "It was something called bait." Yoruichi's eyes widened and she looked around and counted heads and asked, "Where is the Uchiha boy?" When everyone looked around and realized that Sasuke was gone, Jiraiya saw Kakashi about to say something, but Jiraiya spoke first, saying, "Everyone's on guard. We were in over our heads here, so let them deal with this. Watch your backs in case one tries to sneak up on us, mask from what I can tell." This continued for about 20 minutes as all of Konoha's ninja watched helplessly as the Shinigami fought the hollows. Ino yelled, "What the hell is that?" as she pointed her fingers towards the sky where two white hands appeared in the sky and started to separate, and Yoruichi, who had stayed near the group, said, "Shit, one less." As she watched as he opened his mouth and a red beam started to form, and she looked around and said, "Shit, no one here can deflect a Zero currently." As she saw that everyone was running out of power, Naruto looked up and saw at least and shouted, "Everyone take cover!" As he began to move to help the group escape. As he got closer, a voice said, "Bankai," and before anyone could say anything, Ichigo appeared in front of Naruto and the others and got close to his face and brought his hand down as a mask appeared on his face and yelled, "Zero," as he threw his own into the air to meet the one that was fired towards the group. He overpowered the other Zero and continued towards the minus and destroyed it, and Naruto stopped in front of Ichigo, who said, "Withdraw your people, Commander, the 5th squad is here to take over." Naruto nods and said, "Ayame, Tenten, Dustin, Tuchi, Saifan, pull back. All 5 of you here." Each of them appeared and Naruto looked around for a few minutes as the hollows began to retreat and sealed their Zanpakuto. He frowned, looked around and asked, "Where is team?" Yoruichi said. "He disappeared during the fight." Naruto sighed and looked at the stunned group and saw that the house was destroyed, and Tenten smiled as she clapped her hands and touched the ground, and the house began to repair itself. When it finished, it collapsed, but Naruto caught her before she fell to the ground. Ayame said, "Believe it now." As she walked past Sakura toward the house. Chapter 17. As things were calming down at Tazuna's house with the hollows and Shinigami, Sasuke Uchiha found himself standing at the bottom of a set of stairs where he had been quickly taken, and looked up and saw the same masked man from before sitting on a couch, and Sasuke said in his arrogant voice, "Who are you and why have you brought me here?" The man said, "You foolish boy, I brought you here as the last of my line to exact my revenge." Sasuke narrowed his eyes, and before he could say anything, chains shot out of the wall and held him in place as the man stood up and lifted his mask, and Sasuke saw a man he recognized from his own clan's history and said, "Uchiha Madara." The figure snorts and says, "Foolish boy, that fool died years ago in what is called the Valley of the End, but I took his body as my own back then. No, just like Itachi, you are my avatar that will do my bidding. To all who dare oppose me, now prepare yourselves, for I need to feed." As it opened its mouth and bit down on Sasuke's neck. As Sasuke screamed in pain, the figure ate a piece of his soul, then after several minutes stepped back and said, "Now boy, you are mine. I have played Shinigami like a fool for years, and now I wish to end your existence, and you are my key." Sasuke held his neck panting and asked, "What did you do to me?" The man said, "I simply ate the part of your soul that controls your body, but now I control it. All you have to do is speak, and your body does the rest at my will. Now take this and return to Konoha." As he took out a scroll and handed it to Sasuke, Sasuke took the scroll and the floor collapsed on him, and he fell and fell and fell until he passed out. When he woke up, he found himself outside the gates of Konoha, and the Chunin guards asked him, "Are you okay, Uchiha-san?" At that moment a kunai hit the Chunin in the head, and a sword killed the second, and Kisame and Itachi landed next to Sasuke, and Sasuke shouted, "Itachi, I'll kill you!" Itachi sighed and said, "I wish you could, little brother, then I wouldn't be the puppet I am today." As the three figures started walking towards the village. Soon several Inbyu arrived and tried to stop the three, but Sasuke kept walking towards the Hokage Tower while his brother and Kisame killed everyone who stood in their way. In IWA, Deidre flew above the village and said, "I myself have become art as a living piece that I cannot control my own body, as I am not the statue under its control." In the Mist Village, Zabuza and Haku walked through the village, and Haku asked, "What happened to us, master? Why can't we control ourselves, and how did we get to the wave mist?" Zabuza beheaded another man and said, "I don't know, Haku, I don't know." In the village hidden in the rain, Pain and Conan were killing everyone in sight, and Conan said, "This is not the world I imagined, Pain." As the same event unfolded around the world, a figure smiled and said, "And so, my plan finally comes together with one last piece of the puzzle." As he disappeared and reappeared in Soul Society in the Captain Commander's office chambers, and Yamamoto, who was sharing lunch with his life, looked surprised and looked at his wife, who looked confused and said, "Jericho, what are you doing here? Not that I care, but..." and stopped as he felt a sword at his neck from his wife, and Jericho chuckled and said, "You fool, Yamamoto. I've played you from the start. I was the one who told Aizen about Urahara's invention. I was the one who convinced him to betray Soul Society. I was the one who sent the hollow after Ichigo. I was the one who whispered the idea of releasing the invention in the village. I was the one who sent each of the tailed beasts to the villages to be sealed. I was the one who sent Kyuubi to Konoha to be sealed in Naruto. I was the one who convinced the council there that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. It was me who intentionally made you believe that Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet your wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent Kyuubi to Konoha to be sealed in Naruto. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. It was me who intentionally made you believe Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet your wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of Soul Society's strongest fighters being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent Kyuubi to Konoha to be sealed in Naruto. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. I was the one who intentionally made you believe Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet your wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of Soul Society's strongest fighters being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. I was the one who intentionally led you to believe that Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of Soul Society's strongest fighters being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. I was the one who intentionally led you to believe that Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society to be in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. I was the one who intentionally led you to believe that Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who convinced the council that it was too dangerous to let him leave the village and threaten the girls. I was the one who intentionally led you to believe that Naruto would be your successor. I groomed him to become powerful. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. I was the one who sent him to Hyuko Mundo and arranged for him to meet his wife here and for her to come here. I was the one who reset the portals so that mortals in the elemental countries could see the Shinigami and Hollows. And I was the one who gave Naruto the orders that lead to all of the strongest fighters in Soul Society being in the elemental nations, leaving this place practically defenseless. Yamamoto gritted his teeth when he saw the blank expression on his wife's face, and Jericho said, "Don't be angry, you see, she's been my puppet for all these years and her mind is lost." In Konoha, Sasuke stood in front of the Hokage tower with the scroll as the Anbu surrounded him, and their hands opened the scroll, and Sasuke's eyes widened as he saw several hollow bait discs as they fell to the ground, and he screamed, "No!" as his foot lifted and he began to fall. In IWA, Deidre took out several hollow baits, and the bird she was on began to dive towards the center of the village, and a flash was seen. In the mist, Zabuza cut down a couple of chunin while Haku took out several hollow baits and threw them into the air and formed a hand sign, and the needles flew out and hit the disc. In the land of waves, Naruto was sitting while everyone was trying to think of what to say when Inari yelled, "Hey, what the heck is wrong with my body?" as he reached into his pocket and pulled out several hollow baits and crushed them while everyone's eyes widened. Just at that moment in Soul Society the alarms went off saying, "Attention all Shinigami, multiple Ryutsu release detected in the elemental nations." I repeat, multiple Ryutsu release in the elemental nations. Hollow warnings are reporting everywhere. Begin emergency procedure immediately, Yamamoto asked. Why are you doing this, Jericho? Jericho laughed and said, You old fool, you really don't remember, do you? Remember when you were first punished along with your wife here to become the first Hollow and Shinigami? Before that, there was only one god of death who was called the Angel of Death. That was me. When Kami cursed you too, he took away the job I had held since the dawn of creation, and instead of giving me a better job or a peaceful retirement, Kami turned me into a mere messenger. You know how much shame I experienced because of it. I swore that I would have my revenge, so since that day I have sat back and waited, and now you shall watch the fall of everything you and your wife have created. As he gradually walked away, as the Shinigami began to prepare to go to the elemental country, a new alarm sounded and said, Attention, Hollows are appearing in Soul Society. I repeat, Hollows are appearing in Soul AAHHHHHH. As a Hollow began to consume his soul, Naruto, who was wide-eyed seeing Inari break the Hollow bait, quickly ran outside as he saw the members of the squad of 5 who had been only moments before preparing to go outside again. He watched as Hollow portals instantly formed everywhere, and the sky turned black as night as Hyuko Mundo's portal appeared, and he took out his Zanpakuto and said, Shine brightly Aragnerkage. And as his Zanpakuto flared to life, Tenten, Ayam and Saifan rushed to his side and he yelled, Bankai. As he flicked his wrist and his sword became double-edged, and Naruto looked around and looked at his girls, seeing the fear on their face, and thought, This can't be happening. What's going on here? I have to do something. Jericho appeared next to Naruto and said, Well done, fool, you've fulfilled my wildest dreams. Naruto looked at him and asked, What are you talking about? Don't you see what's going on? Jericho said. Of course I can. This is all my revenge. Today the Shinigami will die along with all the Hollows and everyone here, and then I will reclaim my honor as the Angel of Death, and it's all thanks to you, my dear pawn, so I will grant you one final gift. I will spare you. As he grabbed Naruto and they both disappeared as Naruto's girls yelled, Naruto. Naruto found himself back in front of Inari's house, but it looked like no one had been there for weeks, and he looked around and asked, What happened? As he searched for everyone. After about 5 hours of searching, Naruto sat in the forest and thought, Everything is gone, what happened? He felt a hand on his shoulder and looked around when he discovered he was no longer where he had been, but was now in a golden room. Naruto felt at peace here and saw a person covered in pure white where he couldn't see his features, and Naruto asked, Who are you and where am I? As he prepared himself in case he had to fight, the person said, Peace be with you, young Naruto. I would never harm a pure soul like you. Causing Naruto to feel relaxed, Naruto said, What? The person said, I am Kami, Naruto. I have called you to my audience chamber so that I may speak with you. You are my chosen warrior, Naruto, and I wish you to clean up this mess for me. Naruto blinked and quickly bowed and said stutteringly, Forgive me, Kami, for not knowing. What do you want me to do? Kami said. Everyone in Soul Society and the elemental countries have become Hollows, Naruto, including your family and friends. I have given you the power to save everyone in the elemental country and in Soul Society. Your Zanpakuto allows you to restore a person from being a Hollow instead of killing the soul. I knew this was going to happen since the day I refused to give Jericho any more power and stripped him of the title of Angel of Death. Now I want you to return to Soul Society and rid it of Hollows by freeing those who have become Hollows. Then you will return to the elemental nations and do the same thing there. Don't worry about Hyukomundo because I made it where once a Hollow left there during this time they couldn't return, and that applies to those in the elemental nations as well as Soul Society, Naruto said. But I'm just one person, Kami. How can I do so much? Naruto's shadow took shape to resemble him, and Kami smiled and said, You have never been alone, Naruto, for your guardian has been with you the whole time. Your guardian here is all the help you will ever need. You know his name, call upon him, and he will walk beside you in the trial that lies ahead. Do not give up and shine for the world. As Naruto was blinded by the light and appeared in Soul Society, Naruto was on top of the execution ground and saw hollow all around below, and he closed his eyes and it appeared in his mind, and he saw his doppelganger there and said, "What did Kami mean you've always been with me?" Kage smiled and said, "In all this time you still don't understand, do you? I've been in your shadow your whole life. I'm a carbon copy of you down to the scars. It's ironic that you call me Kage. You remember I told you before." Naruto thought for a moment and said, "Yeah, I always thought of you as some kind of bunch and since you look like me." Kage smiled and said, "Then you understand." Naruto blinked and blinked again as he looked thoughtful and his eyes widened and he smiled as the world returned to normal, and he saw several hollows heading towards him and said, "Let's kick some ass, Kagebunshin." As Naruto shadowed and appeared next to Naruto, and they both shouted together, Bankei. Chapter 18. As the word left their mouths, Naruto and Kage held a single-leaf light and a single-leaf dark Zanpakuto. Naruto said, "Let's do this," Kage said. "Remember Naruto, the black blade may not bring someone back, but the blade of light will." As he leaped into the air and began charging towards the hollows, Naruto himself turned and started running towards the ground and ran towards a hollow, and slashed its mask and then blocked with a dark blade and ran towards the next hollow. 6 hollows started spinning around him, and he jumped onto the ceiling and slashed one and Naruto saw that the 2 people he hit were seatless grunts and Naruto said, "Head towards the execution ground but try not to kill any hollows, just defend yourself." Both men ran off and Naruto saw some hollows running after them, but Kage appeared behind the men and cut down the hollows that were after them and Naruto said, "Good idea," Kage smiled and said. "Ordinarily, I thought so." As he cut down one behind him that was trying to attack his blind side, Naruto jumped back as a hollow came out of the ceiling and landed next to Kage, who charged towards the hollow that had tried to attack Naruto and cut its mask off and said, "Shit dude, this is fun," Naruto said. "Shut up and keep working." As he jumped on a hollow's head, stabbing it in the head while jumping to the next and the next, using the 3 heads as a springboard, breaking the mask of each one. When the 3 of them turned back into humans, Naruto saw Orihime and said, "Thank goodness you're here, Granny. No time to explain. Head to the execution ground and try that shield deal to keep the hollows out while Kage and I take care of all the hollows. But don't try to kill just anyone." As he flashed away as a fist hit the ground where he had been standing, Kage slid under the hollow and broke the mask while blocking a follow-up blow from another hollow as Naruto stabbed the hollow from the back of the head, breaking the mask. As this battle continued and continued, Naruto and Kage went down the middle of the street yelling at the newly freed people to head towards the execution ground. Soon though, Kage said, "Hey, I don't know about you but I need to rest, let's head back." Naruto nods, and the 2 begin a slow walk back to the execution grounds. About 20 minutes later, they saw the shield Orihime had raised and let them in, and Kage vanished into Naruto's shadow, and Naruto fell to his knees. Orihime looked at him, and Naruto asked, "How many do you think so far?" Orihime said, "I've let in about 200 so far, and most of them have been ousted members." Naruto sighs and looks at the released souls, and Naruto said, "Alright guys, listen up, I can't go on like this forever, and I've only been doing that within the real Surite so far. I don't know how long Orihime can stay here. Keep her shield up so your jobs are to protect here," a Shinigami said. "Sir, I may be able to help. My Zanpakuto allows me to transfer spiritual energy to others." Naruto looked him in the eyes and said, "What's your name, kid?" Seeing the black-haired boy looking embarrassed, the guy said, "Hi as Dinet." Naruto said, "Well, from this moment on your name is Battery. Get your ass over here and do what you have to do, but give me some energy, Battery, and then recharge Orihime." "You got it," Battery said. "Yes, sir." As he walked over and placed his Zanpakuto on Naruto's shoulder, and a few seconds later said, "Sorry, that's all the energy I have." Naruto's sweat dropped and said, "Dude, I have half a mind to feed your ass to the hollows again." Orihime asked, "Can you use other people's energy besides your own?" The drummer said. "Yes, Mom." Naruto looked at the other people and said, "You hear it, people, move, 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 start a line and give us some energy or we're bucked." When people started powering Naruto up, it took about an hour, but he gets 3/4 of his energy back and stands up and says, "Okay, that's enough for me for now. Carry Orihime and make sure nothing happens to her or Battery or I'll shove my Zanpakuto up your ass." "Do I make myself clear?" Several shouts of, Yes, Captain Commander. As everyone saw his jacket, Naruto nods and quickly releases Kagebunshin again, and they both charge like before. But when they reached the first group of hollows, Kage said, "Okay, what the heck with this? Why are they in marching formation?" Naruto shrugged and said, "I don't know, I don't care, you take the left, I'll take the right." As they both charged towards their respective sides, as they charged towards the middle, hollows quickly surrounded them and the ceilings on both sides opened up as more hollows blocked them escaping into the air, and Naruto said, "So that's it, a trap," Kage said. "Remember what Yamamoto said about the origins of our fighting style?" Naruto blinked and said, "Rude." As he used his tails to wrap around Kage's waist, and Kage did the same to Naruto, and with them back to back they began to spin in a circle as more and more hollows tried to attack. Naruto and Kage soon saw an opening, and Naruto let go of Kage and jumped into the opening, and they both cut 6 gaps on their way down, making an opening, and people started running out of the opening from where they were laying on the ground. Naruto and Kage started covering the people running towards the execution ground as they fell back, and Kage said, "You know, I wonder which will be harder, this one or the elemental countries." Naruto's eyes darkened and he charged forward, taking out 6 hollows, returning them to normal, and said, "The elementals. Let's keep going." As he charged forward further and further, and Kage soon followed him and picked up the remains. Orihime was sitting there sleeping while people gave her energy when Naruto crawled inside the shield and collapsed. He looked back and thought, "That's about 2,200 people now, but Soul Society usually has 130,000. I don't know if he can keep this up." When Naruto woke up, he asked, "How long?" A woman kneeling next to him said, 10 hours. Naruto's eyes widened and he jumped and saw hundreds of hollows pounding on the shield, but they couldn't break through as Orihime had a line of people lined up powering her with the help of batteries. Naruto quickly got up, summoned Kage, and ran out to begin attacking the hollow, quickly freeing the people. While they were doing this, Naruto had stopped looking at the people he freed as he moved on to the next hollow, and so when an arrow flew past his back and killed the hollow, he was shocked and quickly shouted, "Don't kill them!" As he continued to fight, Orihime said, "I know, I also feel helpless sitting here, but all we can do is kill the souls. He is the only one who could save them." Ishida smiled and said, "Not necessarily, Naruto, back off, I have an idea." Naruto looked at Ishida and jumped back on the shield and asked, "What, can't you see I'm busy?" Ishida said, "Please trust me. I think it's something your grandfather and I did once. If it works, we can free everyone in half the time." Naruto frowned and asked, "What is it?" Ishida said. "Seal your Zanpakuto and place it on my head." Naruto frowned even more and said, "What are you going to do?" Ishida said. "If you do, I'll fire a shot. If my idea works, I can cover all the hollows in Soul Society with my rapid fire to free them all." Naruto closed his eyes and said, "Fine." As he sealed his Zanpakuto and placed it on Ishida's head, Ishida pulled back and shot a hollow that fell to the ground as a member of Squad 4 surprised Naruto and said, "Do it." Ishida smiled and retreated, and soon arrows began to rain down, taking out hundreds of holes in a few seconds, turning them back into pure souls. This went on for several hours, and soon almost 3/4 of Soul Society had been freed, and Naruto saw everyone get excited, and then as more people arrived it was easier to keep the charge going. At this point, the Shinigami began gathering the hollows to make Ishida change back. By noon the next day, the entire Soul Society had been freed of hollows, and Orihime, Ishida, Battery, and Naruto collapsed from exhaustion. Chapter 19. It was a week later when Naruto woke up and found himself in the Shihōin family home. He sat up and looked around and saw that he was alone. He got out of bed, got dressed, and started walking around Soul Society. As he walked, he ran into Ishida and Orihime due to their high spiritual energy, and asked them as he walked towards them, "Where are all the high-ranking Shinigami?" Ishida sighed and said, "It seems everyone is gone, maybe in Elemental Country or Hueco Mundo. We found Yamamoto's body in his office, dead along with his wife. It seems they died together." Naruto frowned and asked, "If all the seated officers are gone, how did both of you survive?" Orihime said, "It could have been because we were between worlds when the attack hit. I was recovering Ishida from her injuries. That's all I can think about." Naruto nods and said, "Well, I know not in Hueco Mundo, Kami sealed the gates, making it one way from there, and the gates to the real mortal world are also sealed, Ishida asked. So what's the plan? You're the highest ranking officer here now, and with what's happened, the people here won't follow anyone else. Naruto frowned and said, I want Soul Society to prepare for a possible counterattack. Securing this place is a priority right now. Orihime, you are given a position of field captain of the 4th squad, and Ishida, you are a field captain of the 11th for now. I want you both to go and find at least 5 seated officers for each division, and the 4th will prepare for the wounded and the 11th will be responsible for security here. I'll rest for one more day and head to the elemental countries and start in Salud since it's a small island, and see if I can free a few more and bring them here discreetly, since most of the ones I'll be fighting there will be strong. Hopefully some seated officers. Both of you can handle this well. They both saluted and said, Yes, Captain Commander, Naruto said. Okay, move. They both nod and jump, and Naruto frowned and walked around giving orders and helping fix things. The next day, Naruto set out near the land of waves and quickly began approaching the island. He looked around and thought, well, I can't, since there's a lot of spiritual energy nearby from different sources. As he approached the nearest flight, he was walking through the forest when he heard a twig snap and turned right as a hollow emerged from the trees. Naruto, still holding his Zanpakuto, broke the mask and the hollow fell to the ground. Naruto saw that it was a girl of about 6 years old. The girl started to say something when Naruto quickly covered her mouth and said, If you scream, we'll both die. If you stay close enough to me, I can pull you to safety. It's okay. In a sigh, the girl nods and Naruto whispers as he stood up and thought that the girl's spirit chain broke and she died. I have a feeling everyone here has. Naruto started leading the way to the next fountain and found an old man and then another girl. Naruto sighed and then heard a loud screech of hollows running across the ground towards him and charged forward, splitting the face of one to the left, and then the other, and they both fell to the ground, and Naruto's eyes widened and he said, Oh God, not them! As he saw both figures start to get up, and Naruto quickly moved and put a sword under the neck of one, causing them both to gasp, and Naruto said, If either of you speak above a whisper, I will send your souls to hell, right? You understand, Sakura and Ino? Both girls nod and Naruto steps away and Sakura asks, Where have you been, Naruto? I don't know how long, Naruto said. I was the only one who managed to escape the trap that Sakura, Soul Society, and the elemental nations fell into at the same time. I've freed Soul Society and I'm starting here. Can any of you tell me anything? Ino said. No, we were all at Tazuna's house when that guy grabbed you, and the next thing I knew I was being attacked by a monster. Naruto looked at them and said, Hollows and you two died. Your chains of fate are destroyed, so you can go to Soul Society now, but I want to try and get at least one officer seated before I return to all of you. 2 options, follow me or die. Since you are both ninja, I have recruited you. You are to count how many I release and help keep them as a group and watch out for the children. Do you both understand what I want you to do? Ino said. Yes, we understand, Naruto, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for you when you were a kid, Sakura said. Me too, Naruto said. Don't worry about it, the dead man has a world to save, just wait until those assholes in Konoha find out. With a smirk as he turned and started walking away, and both girls got out and started bringing the small group along. 3 hours later, Naruto sighed as he took out a phone and it rang several times, and the newly selected communications officer said, Command here, go ahead, Naruto said. Open the gate. I have a group of 300 ready for evacuation. An ancient set of doors opened and everyone looked surprised, and Naruto said, All right everyone, walk single file down the middle of the hallway with your hand on the person in front of you. Ino, Sakura, you two will stay here until the end of the line, and however, make sure no one gets left behind here or in the tunnel. Do as I say until we can get to the other side, and everyone should be safe. Let's go. As he had an older-looking woman put her hand on Naruto's shoulder first as he started to lead the way. Around 30 minutes later, Sakura and Ino walked out of the tunnel into Soul Society, and Naruto said, Good work now to everyone here who knows, this is Soul Society. Basically it's the afterlife. The woman over there is Orihime and a doctor who can try to heal the injured, and the man over there is Ishida and the current head of security here. Follow them and they can help you get settled. Naruto turned around and grabbed Sakura and Ino and Flash walked away. They appeared at the Cheyenne clan house and Naruto let go of them as they grabbed his head and Ino asked, "What was that?" Naruto said. "Shrimpa, look, this is my clan home. I brought you two here to use both of you." Both girls paled and Naruto said, "It's not like that, damn it, I already have 3 girls I love. No, what I want is for you to find the library here and find the maps of the elemental countries I was told are here and then wait for Oriheim or Ishida and have them get you the hollow counts in each country and build me a battle map. I'm heading out into the wave to release some more and when I get back you better show some results and not destroy anything." As he walked away, after Naruto left, Ino said, "Oh my god, when did he become so bossy and cool?" Sakura said. "I know. I feel like I have a bucking orgasm when he orders me to," Ino said. He was ordering me around," Sakura said. "Like hell, little pig, and when he sees how good I did for him, he'll forget about you and those 3 bitches," Ino said. "Like hell on my forehead." As she ran into the house with Sakura following her, Naruto was coming out of the tunnel back in a wave, and felt a chill run down his spine and thought, "Me from a great evil." 3 days later Naruto came back from the tunnel in Soul Society with another large group of people, and saw Oriheim who looked ready to kill and Ishida ready to fight, and Naruto said, "Well, I'm back guys and I have a couple of officers sitting down from Team 1, 2, 3 and 6 of this group. Did I miss something?" As more and more people came out, Ishida said. "How many did you get, Naruto?" Naruto said. "I think I have the entire wave country." "What's wrong with you two?" Ishida said. "I want to kill those 2 girls," Naruto frowned and said. "What have Sakura and Ino done now?" Oriheim said. "Congratulations, Naruto, you are now the #1 victim of the most eligible fangirls in Soul Society. They made the map you wanted and then started a fan club." Naruto paled and shouted, and after Naruto calmed down, he said, "Alright, let these people settle down, and I'll head to the house to take care of the 2 girls and see where to attack next." As he walked away, Ishida asked, "Should we have told him that?" Oriheim said. "No, let him figure it out on his own, come on." When Naruto arrived at his clan house, he started sweating from all the flowers and paint he had done, and thought, "That's it, they must die," and shouted, "Sakura and I know, front and center." In less than a minute both girls ran out of the hallway and Naruto saw that they were dizzy as hell and asked, "What the hell is all this?" While waving his hand across the courtyard, Ino asked, "You like Naruto-kun? I thought you would like flowers more." Naruto looked around the yard and said, "Flowers are pretty, Ino, but I like more natural things." Making the girl deflate, Sakura, seeing her chance, said, "What about the painting, Naruto-kun? Do you like the way I made the house more highlighted with neutral colors?" Naruto said, "No, I don't know. The color I had before was my clan's colors, and like I told Ino, I like natural places where I can relax, not be assaulted by people invading nature." "Now show me the map you made." Sakura deflated but quickly perked up and said, "This way please." As she and Ino led him into the house and into the library where several detailed maps of the elemental country were, and Naruto said as he looked at them, "Well, good work on all of this, but now I need you to update the information again and keep this as up to date as possible so I can take out the smaller groups before we get to the stronger enemies. Now please don't destroy my home." As he walked away, Ino asked, "Do you think we should have told him about the kitchen?" Sakura said, "No, let's switch back before he finds out." Naruto appeared at the gates and Ishida was there and asked, "Where are you headed now?" Naruto said, "There are several islands south of the wave, and I'm going to check them out. If I can take out the entire island, that will give us plenty of room to take out the others," Ishida asked. "So, what did you think of the kitchen?" Naruto shuddered and asked. "Kitchen," Ishida said. "Nothing, don't worry," Naruto grunted and said. "You better get this all fixed before I get back." As he started to head back to the Elemental Nation, Chapter 20. It's been 3 months since the fall of the Elemental Nations to the Hollows, and Naruto sighed as he brought another group of souls back to Soul Society. He watched as several squads automatically began working to settle people in and used Shunpa to appear at his clan compound, entered his bath and began to take off his clothes before taking a long bath. Naruto, after soaking for a while, got into bed and passed out. A few hours later, A couple of girls sat outside their bedroom door with their backs to the walls looking sad. One said, "It's been 3 months and she still hasn't found any of her family that she's told us about other than her grandmother, who was lucky to be here." The other nods as she heard a noise on the other side of the door and said, "He's having nightmares again. It's destroying him from the inside out." Ino frowned and said, "I know. If I could still use my clan's chakra and techniques, I could help him, but Retsu doesn't work the same way. Maybe if I could ever gain enough spiritual energy, I might be able to do something someday, but for now all I can do is help him with your help like we've been doing." Sakura nods as she hands a stack of papers to Ino and says, "With this latest group that's now around 113,000 souls that she's saved in 3 months. All of the islands including the Land of Water are now completely lifeless. Reports also show that the hollows have finally taken notice as well as many have disappeared. There have been several attempts by hollows to try and investigate why the Retsu on the islands have disappeared like they have, and they have come across the shield that the 12th Division set up." Ino looked at the reports in her hand and asked, "That means he's left with the real continent at that point. Things are going to get tougher now," a voice that surprised both girls said. "That's why we have yet to reveal our plan." Causing them both to look and see Shada and Orihime standing there, Sakura asked, "So what's your plan?" The door to the room behind the girls opened and Sakura fell back and blushed when she saw Naruto standing there shirtless, and Naruto looked at everyone and asked, "How long?" Ishida said. 12 hours. "You need to rest a little more, Naruto, before we go." Naruto shook his head and said, "I can rest when I'm dead. Those people need us." "Is everything ready?" Orihime said. "We have at least 4 seated officers for each division now. As per his orders, Battery has been forced to train his rear in his own words to increase his own spirit pressure. The 3rd and 5th seats from the 11th squad are ready to go with us since they both have a Bankai. They'll provide you with the energy you need when you need to refuel. Ishida and I are ready to repeat what we originally did here to free everyone, and we have 6 seated officers from the 2nd squad to start using soul burials on people so we don't have to make as many trips with large groups as he's been doing. The only thing we're waiting for is for it to be ready and decide on the first target." Naruto looked at Sakura and Ino and said, "Where are the next lowest levels of Retsu now that the islands are clear?" Sakura looked at her notes, and looked at Ino, who said, "It seems to us that the Country of Lightning is the next smallest, followed by IWA." Naruto asked, "Who has more then?" Ino said. "Ironically, it seems Suna has more energy," Naruto said. "Suna, that's not surprising really. It must be something about hollow over the desert. Hyukomundo is mostly a desert on the surface," Ishida said. "The strongest were always on the surface, so it's not that surprising," Naruto asked. "What would the Fire Nation be on that list?" Sakura bit her lip and said, "Just before Suna." Naruto sighed and said, "I was afraid of that. All right, we'll head towards the Lightning Country first. Have the 12th Division put up the shield around it so none of the hollows from other areas can get in there once we start. The hollows don't worry me that much, it's Jericho I'm more worried about." Everyone there frowned at that name after Naruto told them about the man behind these events. Ishida said, "Since the hollows can't leave, we have the advantage over them for the most part, but the problem is we can't face all directions at once." Naruto stood for a moment and said, "No need, the problem is with what I have planned, it's going to cause more problems. Once we start this, it's all or nothing. We win. We won't be able to return here until we finish Lightning Country, and the moment we start, every hollow in the elemental nations will know we're there. So by the time we get to Fire Country, and then Suna, they'll be waiting for us, and that will make them dangerous, and Jericho has been around longer than any of us, so he knows everything we can do. I want all of Soul Society on alert. He can come and go as he pleases, and he may try another attack like he did before," Orihime said. "Naruto, we will find them and free them." Naruto bit his lip and said, "I know, I just wish I had told them how much I cared about them before all this happened." "I was such an idiot," Sakura said. "I always told you that." Naruto looked at her, and she flinched, and he said, "Sakura, don't ever change." With a small smile on his face, Ino said, "Hey, how come she's smiling and I'm not?" Naruto said. "Ino, I heard your screams all the way back to the elemental nation from you and whoever you were with," Ino said. "I would never." As Naruto laughed, and said, Just kidding, Ino, thank you both. I know I've been hard at work these past few months, and when this mess is over, I'll have someone escort you two back to the real human world in a pair of jugai and let you have a little shopping spree as my payment. Both girls' eyes widened and they said, Sale, Naruto said. But both of you will have a budget. He may have been born a knight, but he wasn't born last night. As he turned and walked back to his room, ignoring the stares of both girls, Orihime said, Well, you heard him. I'm going to spread the word to all the divisions, and you have everyone ready. Ishida nods and says, Fine, as she disappears from view. As Orihime started to leave, she looked at Ino and Sakura and said, Thank you both for helping him. I know you both started this as a way to be with him, but, Sakura said, I just want to be there for him. I see him as a brother I never had now, and so does Ino. His heart belongs to those three, and we both see that not even death will stop him, Ino said. I wish I knew what kind of person he really was when we were kids. I should have been nicer to him, Orihime said. That's something you always live with, must and could. I learned that it's better to just do what is and what you are so that you will be better. As she disappeared, also using Shunpa, both girls sighed as they stood up and started heading towards the 12th Division to get the latest data on the elemental nations. Naruto sat in his room and thought. Ino, Sakura, thank you, Tenten, I am Saifan, I miss you. As he let a small tear fall down his face. 2 hours later, Naruto appeared in front of the main entrance and exit gate of Soul Society and saw Ishida, Orihime, Battery, Ikkaku and Yumachika and 6 officers sitting from the 2nd Division standing there and said, Are all the shields around Lightning Country? Ishida said. Yes. We have them up and running now. So what's your plan? Naruto said. Keep shooting and you'll be doing soul burials as quickly as possible. Sakura and Ino came running over and Sakura said, Naruto, here. This just came in. As she handed him a piece of paper, Naruto looked at her and said, Thanks, Sakura. Alright, listen, things just got a little more exciting. An espada has been detected over there. When it appears, I want Ikkaku and Yumachika to help me fight it. Granny, I want you to open the gate back to Soul Society. Ishida, you're responsible for keeping the battery and her safe. Without those two, we may never finish this mess, Orihime asked. What about you, Naruto? Without you, then we have no choice but to kill them like usual and lose everyone who has changed, Naruto said. I know, that's why I'll be taking the 2 strongest fighters in Soul Society as my bodyguards, right guys? As he placed his hands on the 2 members of the 11th squad, Ikkaku said. Hey, that's right, we are the strongest fighters currently here, Yumachika said. Isn't it beautiful? Naruto said. Are you 2 lovers? They both blinked and grabbed their Zanpakuto and tried to hit it while Naruto ran towards the now open door laughing. Orihime said men, as she started running after them along with the others. As the door closed, Sakura looked at Ino and said, So, Ino said. Your room or mine? Sakura smiled and said. How about mine this time? As she started chasing after Ino. Once they arrived at the Shihōin compound, they ran to Sakura's room and slammed the door, and Ino said, So, how do you want it this time? Sakura said. I think something hard and strong. Ino picked up an item and said, Strong and tough it is then. As she placed the item into a vat of liquid and Sakura said, Yeah, that's perfect. As she also laid down a blanket to prepare, Ino said, Well, here we go ahead. As she placed the brush on the wall and Sakura said, Mahogany is a great color to paint this room. I'm glad Naruto lets us paint our rooms here any way we want, Ino said. Yeah, at least she won't scream like she did when we painted the kitchen, Sakura said. Tell me about that. I thought we had loud voices. As she dripped some paint onto the security blanket to keep the paint off the floor. As Naruto exited the tunnel, he saw that they were exiting right at the border of the country of lightning, and saw the blue barrier that was around them, and waited for the rest of his group to exit the tunnel. Once they did, Ishida asked, So how are we going to do this and why are we starting here? Naruto touched the barrier and said, Nothing can sneak up on us from behind with this behind us, so all we have to do is attack whatever is in front of us, Orihime asked. But there's no hollow here. Naruto reached into his pocket and said, Still. He pulled out several hollow baits, and before anyone had a chance to say anything, he tore them apart. There were a few moments of silence as black portals started to appear and hollows could be seen coming from a distance through the rocky terrain of the Lightning Country, and Naruto said, "All right everyone, here they come." As Orihime tapped the side of her head and said, "Reject." As a shield appeared and Naruto put his Zanpakuto on Ashada's head, who said, "This is the stupidest idea I've ever seen. You're definitely related to Ichigo." As he started shooting arrow after arrow at the hollows as they got closer and closer. Behind them, hollows also began to appear and started attacking the shield, trying to break through, and Naruto kept an eye on it as Ishida continued to fire. 20 minutes later, a hollow-like snake could be seen crossing the ground, eating every hollow that got in its way, and Naruto frowned and said, "Well, there it is, guys." "You're ready," Ikuku said. "You have to ask." "I was getting bored," Naruto said. "Ishida, cover the area and fall back." Ishida nods and starts shooting multiple arrows towards the hollows, turning almost 1,000 hollows into souls as one from the 2nd Division opened a tunnel, and Orihime yelled, "Hurry, run over here and follow us." As she opened a door and Naruto, Ikuku and Yumichika ran out and started fighting so the released souls would run through the tunnel that was being kept open, and they were being led through the tunnel by the 2nd Division as one was doing soul burials to those who were really old or young, who might get run over by the faster ones. While this was happening, the snake-like espada finally arrived and Naruto said, I wonder if I can get a wallet out of it." As he charged at the espada. Chapter 21. Jericho sat at a table and looked at a map of the world and thought, "Curse you, Kami. I know it's you who's been keeping me from leaving this world. For the past 6 months that boy has been a thorn in my side. He hollowed out the island nations first, and I couldn't stop him because by the time I realized he was there, they'd already erected a barrier to keep out outside aid. Even now, as he attacks the country of lightning, I can't stop him, but let's see how he feels when his resolve is shattered. Soon I'll have my revenge on him and then on you." As he threw the wine glass he had next to his through at the map, Jericho stood up and looked at the kneeling figures in front of him and said, "It seems that all of you are happy to see the progress of your Captain Commander, but he is such a simple-minded idiot who always wears his emotions on his sleeve. I can see his resolve weakening every day because he loses hope of ever finding his precious people. Let's see how he feels when everything he's worked for is taken from him and destroyed. Kenpachi, I want you to go to Lightning Country and destroy everyone there, as I see that 2 of your men are helping that fool. Leave no one alive except for the boy. The rest of you who are not related to him are to return to Soul Society and destroy it and all the souls there. Leave nothing standing and no one alive. Once completed, you are to return here." A scream from Ichigo said, "Bastard. If you don't bite us, we'll all destroy you." While the other captain and vice captors struggled to free themselves as their bodies began to move, Jericho said, "I am the reason why people here believe that if they summoned the Shinigami, he would devour their souls. I have been devouring the souls of anyone foolish enough to summon me since the day Kami took my position and honor to give to that cursed old man and his wife. With every soul I devour I gain power, even yours," Minato said. "Great, it's Aizen again," Jericho laughed and said. "Who do you think was controlling Aizen? Now for the rest of you who are related to that boy, go to the remaining areas he hasn't gone to and kill every one of you and destroy the earth as much as possible. This lifeless world. Now get out of my sight and don't come back until you finish your orders, but hurry." While smiling. Meanwhile, in Lightning Country, Naruto stood panting as the espada's body dissolved and said, "Good work, guys. We got him. Is everyone ready to resume the conquest of Lightning Country?" Ikuku said. "Are you sure you can keep going? That fight took more out of you than the boss should have." Naruto gulped as he stood in midair and said, "I used my Bankai at the start of the fight so that he and Ishida can continue the process of recovering each other's souls. He and I share the same energy. My powers allow me to absorb the spirit particles in the shadows around me. Even now I'm absorbing small amounts from you too, but Kage sends them into Ishada's arrows. Once I reabsorb it, I should be able to regain some of my lost energy or not." As Kage disappeared and Naruto began to fall towards the ground, Ikuku moved quickly and caught Naruto before he hit the ground and said, "Shit, he passed out again. Without him, we have to stop. We've done all we can here." Let's go back to Soul Society and a sudden release of power stopped Ikaku and everyone turned to see Kenpachi standing on the other side of the barrier, and had released his eye patch and was pushing against the barrier. Ikaku said, "Captain, I knew a few damn hollows couldn't stop you," Kenpachi said. "All of you get out of here. Jericho has taken over my body and is controlling it as if it were the rest of the captains and vice-captains. Right now those related to the Captain Commander are destroying everything in the other sections the boy hasn't been in, and the rest are being sent to Soul Society to destroy it and kill everyone there. Once I get through this barrier, Jericho will force me to fight and kill you all. While you are in the Land of Lightning, I have to kill you. If you leave that country before I can get through, you can escape. You must protect the commander." Ishida frowned and said, "We need to return to Soul Society and protect the souls there." Ikaku frowned and said, "If I have to fight, then I'll stay here and fight with you, Captain. Anyone who runs away from a battle is dishonored." "I refuse to be dishonored," Yumachika said. "Running away isn't beautiful, Captain." Kenpachi, whose arms had passed through the barrier, smiled and said, "I'm proud to have had you serve with me." As he pushed the rest of his body, Oriheim said, "What should we do, Ishida?" Ishida said, "Oriheim, grab Naruto and Battery and go hide. I'll return to Soul Society with the rest and leave these two to fight their captain. Even if we die, Naruto must live at all costs. Someone has to stop Jericho, and Naruto is the only one who has a chance to do it," Oriheim said. "How can you be sure?" Ishida pushed up his glasses and said, "If Jericho had the ability all along to cause this, why didn't he do it before now? Why make Naruto of all possibilities as strong as him? Something was happening to him to make him stronger. First he gains his Shuriken before entering Soul Society, then he activates his Bankai, then his Vizard form, then he gets another power boost thanks to Kyuubi. Just when it seems like we might get a read on his potential and power, something comes along and doubles it. I think Kami is helping him." Oriheim bit her lip and said, "Perhaps, but then the question is why Naruto?" Ishida said. "I don't know shit, Oriheim. Grab him and go. Your powers will allow you to pass through the barrier. Kenpachi, Ikaku and Yumachika are really getting going now. It's not safe to stay here any longer." Oriheim nods and says, "Good luck, Ishida," Ishida said. "Good luck, Oriheim. All right, grunts, you've heard the plan. Follow me to defend Soul Society." While looking at Naruto and Oriheim and thinking, "I hope things work out, but I have a bad feeling this is going to be goodbye." Chapter 22. With Oriheim, Battery, and Naruto, Oriheim ran towards a cave that Naruto led with Battery following her. Once they entered the cave, Oriheim looked around and Battery said, "Clear." Naruto, who Oriheim had left on the ground, stood up and nodded to Oriheim, who nodded and took out a cell phone and said, "Oriheim here. Phase 1 successful?" Before hanging up, as several figures walked out of the shadow of the cave. In the land of Earth, a figure was hiding in a cave and heard a beep and picked up a cell phone and said, "Sakura here, okay?" Before turning to several black-clad figures and saying, "Assassination Squad, Phase 2 begins." The anonymous members of the second squad quickly disappeared, leaving Sakura there, who bit her lip and thought, "I can't believe we're doing this." Before she heard the sounds of explosions. In the land of fire, Ino, who was hiding in a cave inside the Hokage monument, hung up her cell phone and said, "Begin Phase 2. While over 100 unseated Shinigami said, "Hi," before running out of the cave, and the sound of fighting could be heard. Ino thought, "Please let this work." When the fighting began in the Elemental Nation, in Soul Society, the Shinigami captains and vice-captains who were not related to Naruto stepped through the arch into Soul Society only to find themselves unable to move. Tosen stood in front of all the captains and vice-captains and said, "Hello everyone." Byakuya, who was struggling to free himself, said, "What's going on here, Tosen?" Tosen said, "Jericho must have forgotten about me. Naruto found me and changed me when I was in the land of water. He hid me in the middle 48 until the time was right," Kairaku said. "Why can't we move?" "Not that I'm complaining," Tosen said. "Actually, it was a pair of girls named Sakura and Ino who came up with the idea. The Ino family had the ability to take over the bodies of others in tempestuous ways. The more chakra they had, the longer they could hold it in. I can't use chakra. Sakura came up with the idea to find a way to mimic the Ino family's jutsu. Research and development has been working on the seal you see below your feet. We set it up so that anyone who passes through this gate won't be able to pass through anywhere else unless they break free. And the best part is, the seal is powered by your own spirit energy, meaning it's only as strong as you, Mayuri said. But how did you know we would come through this door? Tosen said. Because we were short on members, Naruto ordered that only 2 gates could be used. The first gate could only be opened from this side, while the other gate could only be opened from the other side. That's why when Naruto brought people back here, he always had us open the gate on this side to let people in. Anyone who opens the gate from the other side has to come in through this gate as a safety precaution. Now, why don't you all relax? You can't go anywhere, Byakuya said. While this seal may stop us, it doesn't stop the fact that not everyone is here. Those related to the Captain Commander are killing everything they find, Tosen said. That's better than we expected, Kairaku said. What do you mean by Tosen? Tosen said. Naruto suspected that Jericho would wait until he thought Naruto was at his weakest and then send someone here to attack Soul's society. That's why, for almost the entire battle in the Land of Lightning, Naruto has been acting like he's fighting while Ishida was actually fighting. Ishida came over looking extremely tired and said, I heard my name Tosen, Tosen said. Yeah. I was just explaining Naruto's plan, Ishida said. Jericho assumed Naruto would use his Zanpakuto to bring everyone back from being hollows, but we kill hollows all the time. The only difference is Naruto can do it before they return to Soul Society. Ordinarily, we had to make it believable so Naruto would give me enough energy to fire 5 shots out of every 50 I made to make it look like we were pushing people back instead of just sending them here normally. All the captains and vice-captains were surprised to hear what was happening and Kairaku asked. But what do you hope to accomplish? Tosen said. Right now, all the Shinigami are in the Elemental Nation killing all the hollows as quickly as possible, while using hollow bait to lure them out. Naruto is having his battery recharge. After it recharges, he'll return here and use the gateway you so graciously opened for us to take him back to where Jericho was hiding. At that moment Naruto appeared with Kenpachi on his shoulder and in an instant he disappeared, causing everyone's clothes to be blown away by the wind from his quick step as Kenpachi landed on the seal the other captains were in. Everyone was surprised and Ishida said, It's definitely faster than before and with Jericho sending Naruto's entire family to other areas. That means they can't be used as hostages, Kairaku said. TSK. The Captain Commander has his grandfather's luck, Byakuya said. Don't tell Ichigo or we'll never hear the end of it. At that moment, Ikaku and Yumichika ran over and Yuichiro said, Baldi-kun, will Kenchan be happy when he wakes up? Ikaku said. No. The Captain Commander appeared behind him and knocked him out with one hit while we distracted him, Yuichiro said. Per Kenny, my god, you hurt Kenny, you bastard. Kick his ass. As she pumped her fist in the air, everyone blinked and blinked again and Ishida said, You may move. Yuichiro looked around and said, Oops. That means the games are over. Ikaku frowned and asked, Game, sir? What do you mean by game? Yuichiro said. Kenny took Jericho's bite from me. He told me to pretend I was under his control like everyone else, Yumichika said. You mean you could have escaped and come help us at any time? Ikaku and Yumichika looked at each other, and Ikaku said, Get her. Yuichiro started running away with Ikaku and Yumichika chasing her, and Tosen said, Why didn't the seal stop her like everyone else? Ishida said. She never actually touched the seal. She was always being carried by someone. Meanwhile, Naruto appeared in front of the village of Suna and said, I'm coming for you, Jericho. Before entering the village. Chapter 23. With Oriheim, Battery, and Naruto, Oriheim ran towards a cave that Naruto led with Battery following her. Once they entered the cave, Oriheim looked around and Battery said, Clear. Naruto, who Oriheim had left on the ground, stood up and nodded to Oriheim, who nodded and took out a cell phone and said, Oriheim here. Phase 1 successful? Before hanging up as several figures walked out of the shadow of the cave. In the land of Earth, a figure was hiding in a cave and heard a beep and picked up a cell phone and said, Sakura here okay? Before turning to several black-clad figures and saying, Assassination Squad, Phase 2 begins. The anonymous members of the second squad quickly disappeared, leaving Sakura there, who bit her lip and thought, "I can't believe we're doing this." Before she heard the sounds of explosions. In the land of fire, Ino, who was hiding in a cave inside the Hokage monument, hung up her cell phone and said, "Begin phase 2. While over 100 unseated Shinigami said, "Hi," before running out of the cave, and the sound of fighting could be heard. Ino thought, "Please let this work." When the fighting began in the Elemental Nation, in Soul Society, the Shinigami captains and vice-captains who were not related to Naruto stepped through the arch into Soul Society only to find themselves unable to move. Tosen stood in front of all the captains and vice-captains and said, "Hello everyone." Byakuya, who was struggling to free himself, said, "What's going on here, Tosen?" Tosen said, "Jericho must have forgotten about me. Naruto found me and changed me when I was in the land of water. He hid me in the middle 48 until the time was right," Kairaka said. "Why can't we move?" "Not that I'm complaining," Tosen said. "Actually, it was a pair of girls named Sakura and Ino who came up with the idea. The Ino family had the ability to take over the bodies of others in tempestuous ways. The more chakra they had, the longer they could hold it in. I can't use chakra. Sakura came up with the idea to find a way to mimic the Ino family's jutsu. Research and development has been working on the seal you see below your feet. We set it up so that anyone who passes through this gate won't be able to pass through anywhere else unless they break free. And the best part is, the seal is powered by your own spirit energy, meaning it's only as strong as you," Mayuri said. "But how did you know we would come through this door?" Tosen said. "Because we were short on members, Naruto ordered that only 2 gates could be used. The first gate could only be opened from this side, while the other gate could only be opened from the other side. That's why when Naruto brought people back here, he always had us open the gate on this side to let people in. Anyone who opens the gate from the other side has to come in through this gate as a safety precaution. Now why don't you all relax?" "You can't go anywhere," Byakuya said. "While this seal may stop us, it doesn't stop the fact that not everyone is here. Those related to the Captain Commander are killing everything they find," Tosen said. "That's better than we expected," Kairaka said. "What do you mean by Tosen?" Tosen said. "Naruto suspected that Jericho would wait until he thought Naruto was at his weakest and then send someone here to attack Soul Society. That's why, for almost the entire battle in the Land of Lightning, Naruto has been acting like he's fighting while Ishida was actually fighting." Ishida came over looking extremely tired and said, "I heard my name, Tosen," Tosen said. "Yeah. I was just explaining Naruto's plan," Ishida said. "Jericho assumed Naruto would use his Zanpakuto to bring everyone back from being hollows, but we kill hollows all the time. The only difference is Naruto can do it before they return to Soul Society. Ordinarily, we had to make it believable so Naruto would give me enough energy to fire 5 shots out of every 50 I made to make it look like we were pushing people back instead of just sending them here normally." All the captains and vice-captains were surprised to hear what was happening, and Kairaka asked, "But what do you hope to accomplish?" Tosen said. "Right now, all the Shinigami are in the Elemental Nation killing all the hollows as quickly as possible, while using hollow bait to lure them out. Naruto is having his battery recharge. After it recharges, he'll return here and use the gateway you so graciously opened for us to take him back to where Jericho was hiding." At that moment Naruto appeared with Kenpachi on his shoulder, and in an instant he disappeared, causing everyone's clothes to be blown away by the wind from his quick step as Kenpachi landed on the seal the other captains were in. Everyone was surprised, and Ishida said, "It's definitely faster than before, and with Jericho sending Naruto's entire family to other areas, that means they can't be used as hostages," Kairaka said. "TSK. The Captain Commander has his grandfather's luck," Byakuya said. "Don't tell Ichigo or we'll never hear the end of it." At that moment, Ikaku and Yumichika ran over, and Yuichiro said, "Baldi-kun, will Kenchan be happy when he wakes up?" Ikaku said. "No. The Captain Commander appeared behind him and knocked him out with one hit while we distracted him," Yuichiro said. "Per Kenny, my god, you hurt Kenny, you bastard! Kick his ass!" As she pumped her fist in the air, everyone blinked and blinked again, and Ishida said, "You may move." Yuichiro looked around and said, "Oops. That means the games are over." Ikaku frowned and asked. Game, sir? What do you mean by game? Yuichiro said. Kenny took Jericho's bite from me. He told me to pretend I was under his control like everyone else, Yumachika said. You mean you could have escaped and come help us at any time? Ikaku and Yumachika looked at each other and Ikaku said, Get her. Yuichiro started running away with Ikaku and Yumachika chasing her, and Tosen said, Why didn't the seal stop her like everyone else? Ishida said. She never actually touched the seal. She was always being carried by someone. Meanwhile, Naruto appeared in front of the village of Suna and said, I'm coming for you, Jericho. Before entering the village, Jericho gritted his teeth before slamming his fist into a map of the Elemental Nation and Soul Society. Damn it, what's going on? Why isn't Soul Society being destroyed? Why haven't I received any reports from those damned Shinigami? A voice that made Jericho freeze said. I'm sure you'll find the Shinigami are a bit tied up right now, Jericho. Jericho turned and said. Kami, what are you doing here? Kami said. Oh, I just came to tell you that you should know not to mess with me or those under my protection. That's why Yamamoto and his wife separated in the first place. You used my pets, the Bija, as part of your revenge. How is that any different from what those two mortals had done? Jericho said. You can't touch me, Kami. I have no direct influence on the lives of mortals. I'm not immortal, so you can't do shit to me, Kami said. True, I can't do anything to you directly, but that doesn't mean I can't do anything indirectly. Tell me, why did Naruto keep increasing and his abilities become a mystery to you? Jericho glared at him and said. It was you, Kami nods and said. Naruto's light blades have the power to restore a hollow back to a normal soul, while Naruto's black blade has the ability to restore a soul, Jericho said. So his black sword has the same ability as his white sword, Kami chuckled and said. No, Jericho. I said his black sword can restore a soul. He can stab a soul with his black sword and repair any damage that was done to it, like the damage that is done to a soul when you take a bite out of it to control them. Jericho's eyes widened and say, You, Kami said. Yes, I did. I always knew what you were doing, but I have a confession: you were never in control of Kyuubi or the other Bija. They were pretending to follow your orders as a request to me. Jericho frowned and said. And why would you want your pet to pretend to be my slave? Kami said. Simple, so that when they were sealed inside a human they would learn chakra control. As we speak, the ones you sent to attack the elemental nations are being captured by the Bijou, while Naruto secretly had his Shinigami that he freed kill the hollows here and send them to Soul Society. You were right about me wanting the humans of this world gone and not appreciating the idea of killing the patient to cure the disease, but since you were kind enough to kill them all anyway, it doesn't matter. Naruto's black blade will allow him to repair the damage to all the souls that were affected by Aizen, Jericho said. That kid is nothing but a failure who, rip, Chipodio, hit, drip, hit, drip. Jericho coughed as he went into shock and looked at his chest, where an arm covered in spiritual energy was standing with Jericho's heart beating in it and the hand connected to the heart. Jericho looked back and saw Naruto's eyes that were dead from cold, and Naruto said, My friends and family are the light of my world. Without them, I am nothing but all-consuming darkness, and yet I continue to exist. Even then the darkness itself die. As he clenched his fist, crushing his heart as his arm was covered in spiritual energy again, burning Jericho's arm and body. Once Jericho's body turned to ash, Naruto closed his eyes as a tear fell from them before falling forward, only to find himself caught by Kami, who gently wiped the tears from Naruto's cheeks and said, Peace be with you, child. You have done well, Naruto asked in a strained voice. Why? Kami said softly. Just as each generation is tasked with surpassing the one before it, each generation has to deal with the consequences of the ones before it as well. Every life is precious. Even the bad ones. In life there is only balance. Jericho forgot this a long time ago, and I believe his position made him the exception to the rule. That's why when Yamamoto and his wife first came along, I created a system of balance to make sure others didn't fall into the same mindset Jericho had. You have responsibilities when it comes to those who came before you. I do too. I have to make sure the next generation has the tools they need to deal with the consequences of the ones before them and the potential to surpass them as well, Naruto asked. Why can't you do it where there's no pain and suffering? Why make things hurt so much? In a voice filled with pain, Kami said. Because the greatest gift you have is the freedom of choice. You have the ability to choose for yourself, but you must also deal with the consequences of those choices, both good and bad. How else will you grow and be grateful? Look for the things you have and value them instead of becoming complacent. Naruto remained silent for several moments and said, There everyone is alive and safe. In a calm tone, Kami said. Yes, though they are still under Jericho's control, but if you let me borrow your power for a moment, I will use your sword to free everyone, Naruto said. Take it. Do what you must. Power means nothing if you're alone, Kami smiled and said. You are much wiser than me, many centuries older than you, Naruto. I knew you were the right choice for me to make to bring everything back into balance. Before taking Naruto's Zanpakuto, and it began to glow before everything was covered in a black light. When Naruto opened his eyes, he found himself back in his soulmate room and thought, What the hell, how did I get back here? A knock on Naruto's door caught his attention, and he frowned and stood up and walked to the door and said, Who is it? A female voice said. Didn't I teach you how to detect spiritual energy? Naruto's eyes widened and he quickly opened the door and saw Saiyaphon standing there along with Im and Tenten. The next moment, there was a loud thud as Naruto found himself on his back on the ground with the three girls hugging him tightly with tears in their eyes. A cough was heard from the door, and Yoruichi said, Am I interrupting something? Saiyaphon said. Yes. Causing Yoruichi to laugh, and she said, In that case, you should let me deliver my message so you won't be interrupted anymore. Each of the girls frowned but turned away from Naruto, who pouted and said, Do you have to let them go? I miss them all, damn it, and I don't want to let you go again, Saiyaphon said. As soon as she's gone, you won't have to let go of her ever again. As he glanced at Yoruichi, Yoruichi chuckled and said, I just came to tell you that Kami has brought Captain Commander Yamamoto and his wife back to life along with everyone else who died because of Jericho. Naruto frowned and said, That's good, I guess, but I have feelings, that's not all, Yoruichi said. Kami decided that you've earned some family time and time for yourself after everything you've been through. The pocket dimension the bijou were in has been restored to the way it was before we sent the humans there, Naruto said. That's good, Yoruichi said. I suppose so, but that's not all. Kami left this for you and said it was your choice what to do. While holding a scroll, Naruto frowned, took the scroll and opened it. Naruto, I want to thank you again for everything you've done. You've earned a break, so I brought Yamamoto back to life with his wife so you can continue to be Captain Commander until you feel you're ready to take over. Everyone in Soul Society remembers what they've done. However, Kyuubi asked me to give you a gift for everything you did, as well as the pain and suffering you went through. It's a choice. If you accept Kyuubi's gift, I will stop time for everyone in the Elemental Nation and send them back to the real world and start time over again so they won't realize what happened until they die. For them, it will be the day after you left Konoha with Im and Tenten. Kyuubi thought you might like the chance to prove yourself without Jericho. If you choose not to accept this gift, you can simply stay here with your family and friends and begin your life as a Soul Reaper. It's your choice. Choose. Naruto blinked and looked at the scroll and said, I choose. Which one will Naruto choose? If he chooses yes, there will be a sequel. If he chooses no, there won't be one. I hope you enjoyed this story and have a nice day.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.